Chapter 259. Shanine was treating Su Xiaolan so well that Su Xiaolan was a little at a loss as to what to do. She had even waived all of the tests and was handing over the inheritance to her in such a generous manner. This was like a free lunch falling from the sky. "Don't worry, I'll help you activate the power of your Dragon Tribe bloodline first," Shanine said with a smile. Her expression was filled with the doting love of a senior toward a junior. Su Xiaolan nodded. Even her father was unable to resolve the issue regarding her Dragon Tribe bloodline. She didn't think that she would be able to resolve this issue here in the Winter Dragon Tomb. This was most likely the greatest blessing that she had ever received. Shun Yin's eyes turned golden, and a peerless dragon's might emanated from her body, as if she were a goddess looking down upon everyone. A massive golden spell formation appeared on the ground, encompassing the entire floating continent. The vital energy of heaven and earth began to surge as countless golden runes appeared in the air, revolving around Su Xiaolan. Shun Yin uttered a series of hand seals as her fingers moved through the air in a nimble manner. Ancestral dragon's divine might, break all restrictions. Shun Yin finally said something that Enlin could understand before pointing two fingers towards Su Xiaolan's glabella. Boom! The spell formation quickly activated as countless runes surged into Su Xiaolan's body in a frenzy. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed slightly as she let loose a pain moan. 15 minutes later, something seemed to have awakened within her. Su Xiaolan's aura transformed into the aura of a queen that reigned supreme over all things. Her eyes had turned a pure golden color, and a pair of phoenix wings spread open on her back. There was also an azure dragon winding around her curvaceous body, making her appear even more noble and inviolable. And Lin almost knelt down upon seeing Su Xiaolan in this state. This was a super evolved version of Su Xiaolan. She was so dazzling. Soon, Su Xiaolan's eyes turned black and white again, and her aura began to recede. Meanwhile, Shun Yin's body swayed slightly, as if she had overexerted herself. Su Xiaolan hurried over to support Shen Yin with a grateful, yet nervous expression. "Thank you, big sister Shanine. Are you all right?" Shen Yin shook her head. "It's fine. Let's begin the next step of the inheritance. I will give you my knowledge, comprehension, and the last bit of bloodline power I have left." After saying that, she ignored Su Xiaolan's reaction and pointed her finger at Su Xiaolan's forehead again. This time, the inheritance was much more low-key. There were almost no ripples in the surroundings. Time passed by bit, and Lin laid on top of Dabai, not knowing what to do. He could only silently admire the two beauties who were standing still. "Hey, Dabai, these two women, which one do you like more?" And Lin suddenly asked out of nowhere. Dabai was just amazed by Su Xiaolan's full power. At this time, he replied without hesitation, "Of course it's Su Xiaolan Wolf." Bang! Dabai's head was smashed angrily. "I'll give you one more chance," and Lin said in a cold voice. "Dabai, Shanine." And Lin nodded with satisfaction. As a beast pet, how could he like the same woman as boss? Just as the two of them were joking around, Su Xiaolan's inheritance had already concluded. Shen Yin lowered her finger from Su Xiaolan's forehead with a relieved expression on her face. She raised her finger, and ripples spread through the air. A translucent, snow-white ring emerged from thin air before being gently pinched between her fingers. She picked up Su Xiaolan's delicate hand and slowly slipped the ring onto her finger. White holy light shone upon the two of them, creating a circle on the ground that separated them from the outside world. It was as if the two of them were the only people left in this world. Shun Yin's smile was extremely beautiful and natural. Su Xiaolan's face was slightly flushed with trepidation. The two peerless beauties in the magnificent palace, under the holy and solemn light, successfully completed the transfer of the rings. And Lin, Dabai, and Xiao Chou stared blankly at this scene. They felt that it was so beautiful and harmonious, and they felt as if something was about to awaken in their hearts. And Lin quickly came to his senses and he suddenly had a feeling that Su Xiaolan was about to be taken away from him. Fortunately, the ring transfer ceremony concluded very quickly, and the holy light that had appeared out of nowhere also dissipated. Big Sister Shun Yin. Su Xiaolan stared at the woman before her with a slightly entranced expression. Not only had Shun Yin awakened her bloodline and given her an immortal tool, but she had also given her a lifetime of enlightenment, knowledge, and even the last wisp of her bloodline power to her. Even now, she still felt like she was in a dream. What had she done for Shun Yin to treat her so well? Shun Yin merely smiled and looked at everyone before speaking in a gentle voice. Would you all be interested in hearing a story? Yes, of course. Lin and the others nodded in unison. They knew that they would definitely be slapped to death if they said they weren't interested. A reminiscent expression appeared on Shun Yin's face, and her expression became even more gentle, as if she were a gentle woman from the Jiangnan region. All right, then I'll tell you a story. It's about me. And Lin obediently brought out small stools from his storage ring and distributed them to everyone so that they could sit and listen. Everyone sat up straight and looked at Shun Yin with expressions that said, I'm ready. Please begin your performance, big boss. Shun Yin's lips twitched slightly, and she felt as if the atmosphere had been ruined. However, as expected of a mighty figure like Shun Yin, she quickly regained her composure and began to narrate the story. However, to everyone's surprise, what came out of her mouth was not words, but a series of incredibly beautiful syllables. A beautiful melody floated in the air. This was the sound of nature, the most beautiful song. A series of images appeared in everyone's minds as they listened to Shun Yin's song. These weren't just images, but images that were imbued with a person's memories, emotions, and even enlightenment. They saw the dazzling dragon court deep in the ocean, and they saw a little girl who was still in her infancy. Her name was Shun Yin, and Lin didn't understand what Shun Yin was singing, but he could clearly sense the innocence imbued within her voice. Shun Yin was obedient and adorable. She had a pair of perfect dragon horns that all of her brethren were extremely envious of, and she also possessed the purest bloodline of the ancestral dragon. She was born with golden eyes and a body that reigned supreme among her brethren. Her cultivation progressed at a rapid pace, and she soon evolved from a WYRM to a cloud dragon, then a horned dragon. Her beauty was exquisite, and her power was unmatched among her peers. She was the most dazzling pearl in the dragon court, and even the Dragon King had nothing but praise for her. She was referred to as the Heavenly Dragon Maiden. Her singing gradually became more and more high-spirited. Shun Yin traveled the Tai Chu continent, and her extraordinary strength and breathtaking beauty made the title of Heavenly Dragon Maiden renowned throughout the entire continent. She was not a gentle and weak woman. On the contrary, throughout this journey, she had been resolute in killing, exterminating evil, and protecting the Tao. The number of evil sects that she had uprooted was innumerable, and her cultivation also grew with each battle she fought. She traveled west and entered the Kingdom of the Nine States. In the Kingdom of the Nine States, she was targeted by her nemesis, the Qinghuan sect. The Qinghuan sect deployed 8 Soul Formation Stage Elders to set up a killing formation to trap her. This formation was extremely powerful, and it could trap and kill any cultivator below the Return to Void stage. Even though Shun Yin's cultivation base was very high, she was still below the Return to Void stage, so she could only be exhausted to death. This was a hopeless situation for her. However, it was under such circumstances that a man as dazzling as a phoenix suddenly appeared in her life. The top disciple of the Vermilion Bird sect, Dongfang Ming. Chapter 260. Dongfang Ming's white robes fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were as dazzling as the stars in the night sky. He could summon the great void true flames with just a wave of his hand, and with every step he took, the entire heaven and earth transformed into a boundless sea of flames for his use. Shun Yin had never seen such a dazzling man before. He was like a monarch of flames, capable of incinerating the heavens and boiling the seas. He was invincible, The 8-soul formation stage, demonic cultivators couldn't last more than 3 breaths before they were incinerated into ashes by the boundless great void true flames. You have a vendetta against the Qing Huan sect? They deployed half of their forces to kill you. In contrast to his arrogant demeanor, the man's voice was particularly gentle. A faint blush appeared on Shun Yin's face, but her bright eyes stared directly at the man before her, not for any other reason than the fact that he was simply too handsome. What a coincidence! My mission is to destroy the Qing Huan sect. Shall we go there together? Dongfang Ming smiled again. Shun Yin nodded vigorously. This was the first time they had spoken to each other, and it was a simple and direct conversation that connected their fates. Qing Huan sect. The heavenly dragon maiden confessed her love amid a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Dongfang Ming, be my Dao partner. Why? Dongfang Ming was startled. Because you're handsome. Dongfang Ming, because you saved me. Dongfang Ming shook his head. I don't need someone to repay me with their body. A Dao partner is a lifelong event, and it's not something to be trifled with. I can't make a decision without spending over 100 years together. All right, then I'll be with you for 100 years first. Dongfang Ming, her voice began to become gentle and mellow, like a gentle breeze caressing one's cheeks, or like a lover's soft moan. Time flew by, and the sea turned into a rock. Shun Yin chased after a drifting dandelion in a sea of dandelions. Lin and the others saw the gentle expression in Dongfang Ming's eyes. Shun Yin strolled along the beach as the sun set. Her pristine white toes sank into the golden sand as she hummed a moving song. Dongfang Ming picked up an extremely beautiful seashell and gave it to Shun Yin before grabbing on her hand. Lin and the others could feel the warmth of Dongfang Ming's hand and the love in his eyes. Xiaoming, I plan to forge a celestial artifact that contains the power of a true dragon and a heavenly phoenix for our child. We're not Taoist companions yet, and you're already thinking about what weapons our children will use. It's only a matter of time. Half of the 100-year promise has already passed. The two of them roamed the 9 states, looking for materials to forge weapons. In order to forge this immortal weapon to perfection, the two of them even sacrificed their own bloodline power to fuse into the weapon. On the day that the Dragon Sparrow sword was completed, the true dragon and heavenly phoenix intertwined in midair, and a phenomenon of heaven and earth instantly took place. Xiaoming, hug this sword as if you were hugging our child. After all, this sword has the aura of our bloodline. Then do we still want to have children? You scoundrel, you finally admit that I'm your Dao companion? Fool, if I didn't treat you as my Dao companion, only an idiot would waste 80 years to accompany you. Shun Yin, in another 20 years, I'll go to the Dragon Court and marry you. All right, I'll wait for you. Shun Yin's singing voice suddenly changed. An extremely fearful emotion began to appear in her voice. A series of scenes that she didn't want to recall began to appear in her mind. The failed Dao integration stage product of the Purple Star Realm, the God Fiend of 6 Paths, led a 100,000-strong ghostly army toward the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas. The ghostly army wreaked havoc, and the East Sea was transformed into a bloody, ghostly realm. Shun Yin looked on at this despairing scene, only to find Dongfang Ming standing in front of her again. He was still as dazzling as ever. His entire body was like the sun, illuminating Shun Yin's entire world, just like when they had first met. But this time, it was different from when they first met. This was the day that they would be parted forever. The God Fiend of 6 Paths was extremely powerful, and Dongfang Ming had to expend all of his power in order to defeat the God Fiend of 6 Paths and completely crush the Ghost Tribe army. Dongfang Ming lay in Shun Yin's arms. His aura was like a candle in the wind, but the gentle expression on his face remained unchanged. Shun Yin, I've invented a bloodline transplant spell technique that can transfer my power to you. No, you have to live. Have you forgotten our promise? There's only 2 years left. There's only 2 years left. The young woman sobbed with extreme grief. The phoenix bloodline flowed through her body like a gentle stream, warming up her frosty body and soul. I'm sorry, I didn't keep my promise. Her voice was imbued with boundless sorrow and remembrance, drawing tears from the listener's eyes. And Lin and the others all burst into tears at the sight of Dong Fongming's death. This was a true sorrow, as if their lover had passed away. It couldn't be helped. They were simply too immersed in the tragedy. Su Xiaolan clasped a hand over her heart as tears welled up in her eyes. Xiaoming, why did you leave me? And Lin wiped away his tears as his mind was filled with images of Dong Fongming's smiling face. His domineering aura, his gentleness, his constant protectiveness, and a love that flowed through his veins unwittingly, all the way up until the moment of his death. All of these emotions erupted forth, and Enlin was completely heartbroken. Wah, husband, how could you die? No, I want to die with you. Woof. Dabai's face was already covered in tears, and he looked as if he had nothing left to live for. Only the clown stood firmly on the spot, not crying or howling. He kept reminding himself that a love story that transcended species would never end well. However, what was with this ocean-like sadness? And what kind of liquid was flowing from his face? Xinyan's voice gradually began to change. A certain conviction supported her forward as she embarked on the path of Tao once again. Her delicate body seemed to have been imbued with some kind of power, allowing her to forge ahead with all her might. She was several times more determined and desperate than she had been in the past. Xiaoming, I'll definitely make good use of the power you left in my body. The Dragon King's enraged roar erupted from within the Dragon Court. Shanine, you've gone insane. How can the Tao of a phoenix and the Tao of a true dragon be combined? They're two completely different great Taos to begin with, and you'll die if you force them together. There are countless great Taos, and there are no restrictions. Why can't I create a new Tao? A faint smile appeared on Shunyan's face, but her voice was extremely firm. His power will fuse with mine, and will never be separated. On this day, heaven and earth tumbled as the ocean surged. Countless bolts of lightning fell over the East Sea, and the entire sky rumbled incessantly as flames erupted like scorching suns, threatening to evaporate the entire ocean. However, all of this disappeared amid a pained moan from the woman. Shanine had failed her Tao integration stage on the East Sea, and her delicate body plummeted from the sky with a forlorn smile on her face. I still failed. I really don't know why I'm so stubborn. If only I had materialized the true Dragon Tao earlier. Shun-Yin was feeling a little self-deprecating, but for some reason, she didn't feel any remorse in her heart. All she felt was regret that she had failed her Tao integration stage. She had used a mystic technique to solidify her consciousness in order to delay her own death. She arrived at the place where she had first met Dong Fongming. This was the plateau between the Heavenly River State and the Stone Dragon State. What should I call it? I met you in winter, and it was also winter when you left me. How about I call it the Winter Dragon Tomb? Shanine had constructed a tomb for herself and sealed herself within the Divine Spirit Pillar, waiting for the fated person who could inherit her power. It had to be said that fate was a very strange thing sometimes. A beautiful woman had arrived at this dragon tomb. She possessed the bloodline of the true dragon and the divine phoenix. She had a bloodline connection with Shun-Yin, and she had received the approval of the dragon sparrow sword. Shun-Yin felt like if she and Dong Fongming were to have a child, it would definitely be someone like Su Xiaolan. Her thousands of years of waiting had not been in vain. She had found someone who was both very surprising and very satisfying to her. The song drifted into the distance, and Shun-Yin's body began to fly toward the pillar of white light. There were two streams of tears running down her face, and she seemed to be able to see that dazzling figure again. The woman in the white dress gradually became illusionary, and her aura began to dissipate. The palace of heaven began to tremor as cracks began to appear on its walls. The space within the Winter Dragon Tomb also began to tremor as a series of web-like cracks began to appear. Lin and the others came to their senses, and they finally realized that they couldn't stay here any longer as they looked on at the disappearing divine voice. Big Sister Shun-Yin. Su Xiaolan yelled as she ran toward Shun-Yin, only to be held back by Lin. Run. We're going to die if we don't leave now. And Lin leaped onto his black brick with Su Xiaolan in tow before flying toward the exit with Dabai and Xiao Qiu. Elder Fate heaved a faint sigh as he made his way toward the spatial gate of the tomb. The light emanating from the palace of heaven slowly dissipated, and the mystic realm that had existed for 8,000 years began to crumble at this moment, as if it was going to completely bury its past. How fortunate I am to have been able to spend 98 years with you in this life. Shun Yin's voice was like the sound of nature, but it was drowned out by the spatial turbulence of the mystic realm. Chapter 261. On the plateau between the heavenly river state and the stone dragon state, rainbow clouds hovered in the sky. A spatial gate, glowing with a white light, was gradually dimming, as if it was about to collapse at any moment. Hall Leader Su Tong and Deputy Hall Leader Su Yongnan stood nearby with their hands clasped behind their backs. Behind them were 20 elite disciples from the Hall of Martial Arts. The Hall of Seven Sins was a mid-tier cultivation sect on the Darien Plateau. 2 days ago, when the disciples of the Hall of Seven Sins had witnessed the phenomenon, Su Tong had personally led the elites of the sect to this place. A phenomenon from the sky indicated that a rare treasure had appeared. The allure of a rare treasure was unimaginable, and the opportunities it represented were enough to shake the entire state. If the Hall of Seven Sins could obtain this rare treasure, they might be able to become a high-tier cultivation sect. Although they couldn't enter the spatial gate, they could wait for the person inside to bring out the rare treasure before setting up a trap for it. At this moment, the gate of light flashed, and an elderly man with white hair and a beard appeared before everyone's eyes. The elderly man glanced at everyone from the Hall of Seven Sins and couldn't even be bothered to say a word to them before flying away. For an old monster like him who had lived for close to 10,000 years, he couldn't even be bothered to talk to a bunch of juniors. Big Brother, another mighty figure that we can't see, clearly has appeared. The cultivators who entered the mystic realm to search for treasures are probably not to be trifled with. Deputy Hall Leader Su Yongnan wiped the cold sweat off his forehead as he spoke with an uneasy expression. Su Yongnan and Su Tong were both soul formation initial stage cultivators. In the Kingdom of the Nine States, they could already be considered powerful cultivators. However, as they waited outside the spatial gate, they saw a few mighty figures of unfathomable power level emerge. All of these mighty figures were high and mighty, and they couldn't even be bothered to pay attention to them as they swaggered away. In this way, how weak could the cultivators who wandered in this secret realm be? Su Tong was clearly a little conflicted, but after a moment, a determined expression appeared on his face. Can't we just stand here and enjoy the scenery? This place is under the jurisdiction of the Hall of Seven Sins anyway. So who can stop us? If the cultivator who comes out is weaker than us, then we'll *CK him up. If the cultivator who comes out is stronger than us, then we'll pretend to enjoy the scenery. Su Yongnan knew that his big brother had already made up his mind, so he could only sigh lightly and fall silent. Rumble. The spatial gate moved again, and a black brick rushed out of it. On the black brick were a man and a woman, a monkey and a dog. Not long after they appeared, the spatial gate completely collapsed and turned into specks of light. This was the last batch of cultivators. Su Tong and Su Yongnan's expressions froze. A cultivator of the spirit-nurturing initial stage, a huge dog of the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage, a cultivator of the spirit-nurturing final stage, and a monkey of the half-step soul formation stage. Big Brother, I didn't expect them to be so weak. Su Yongnan had initially thought that there would at least be one cultivator of the soul formation stage leading the team into the mystic realm. However, to his surprise, all of their cultivation bases were below the soul formation stage. This made Su Yongnan extremely tempted. Su Tong let out a cruel laugh. Looks like the heavens are helping our Hall of Seven Sins this time. Everyone, activate the Seven Sins formation and begin the encirclement. Lin and the others had just exited the mystic realm on their brick and were bathed in the radiant sunlight. Before they even had a chance to sigh with emotion, a huge spell formation suddenly appeared, enshrouding everyone within. Within the spell formation, flying swords flew through the air, vines lay dormant, icicles hung in the air, flaming dragons roared on the ground, and sand and pebbles flew through the air. Gusts of wind were like sharp blades, and lightning crackled in the sky. These represented the 7 different types of power: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and lightning. Immediately afterward, a group of cultivators dressed in black robes appeared outside the spell formation. Their leader, Su Tong, laughed heartily as he joined his hands in salute. "I am the leader of the Hall of 7 Sins, Su Tong. Congratulations on finding treasures in the mystic realm. Now, please hand over your treasures." And Lin's lips twitched. F***CK. They were being robbed as soon as they left the mystic realm. "How unlucky," he replied in a cold voice. "What if we don't hand them over?" Su Yonin chuckled coldly. "Hand over your treasures, and I'll give you a quick death. Otherwise, I'll make you wish you were dead." "Oh, kill me and take my treasures?" And Lin was a little excited. After cultivating for so long, he had finally encountered something like this. Dabai also spoke up at this moment. Big Brother in the Hall of 7 Sins is a mid-tier cultivation sect in the Stone Dragon State. It's a subsidiary power of the Great Sage Devil Sect. The Hall of 7 Sins loves to kill and rob others of their treasures. However, they're very discreet and difficult to track down. That's why they haven't been exterminated yet. Dabai's mythological bee sect was located in the Stone Dragon State, so he was quite familiar with the cultivation sects in the Stone Dragon State. Haha, I didn't expect a dog like you to know so much. But so what? You're trapped in the 7 Sins spell formation, so you should just obediently accept your deaths. Su Tong said with a smug expression. The 7 Sins spell formation was so powerful that it could even kill a soul formation stage cultivator. How could these cultivators who hadn't even reached the soul formation stage be able to resist it? A reminiscent expression appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as she looked at the perilous spell formation. This is so similar to the situation that Shun Yin encountered. Will an extremely dazzling man appear here? And Lin's heart stirred upon hearing this, and he stepped forward. "Don't worry, Xiaolan. There's no need for you to do anything. I'll take care of all the enemies on my own." Su Xiaolan faltered slightly as she looked at the man's back. A sweet feeling welled up in her heart. Wasn't he that dazzling man? The Hall of 7 Sins is an evil cultivation sect, so there's no need for us to hold back. They like to kill and rob others of their treasures, so there's definitely something in their storage rings. Let me tell you, the storage rings belong to whoever takes them, and you're not allowed to complain. And Lin's eyes lit up as he licked his lips. Xiao Chou and Dabai's eyes glowed with greed as they stared at the cultivators of the Hall of 7 Sins like hungry wolves. F***CK. They couldn't even get a single hair from the Winter Dragon Tomb. How could they not be frustrated? The heavens must have taken pity on them to have sent a bunch of evil cultivators to kill and rob others of their treasures. He, the man, the monkey, and the dog all let loose unintelligible cackles. Su Xiaolan massaged her brows as her chest tightened. It seemed like she was celebrating too early. Who would have thought that in Lin's image as a shining sun would crumble so quickly? A chill ran down Su Yongnan's spine as he looked at Lin and the others. Big Brother, why do I feel like they're the hunters and we're the prey? Su Tong's heart trembled at the sight of Lin's sinister smile, but he still activated the spell formation with a frosty expression. What can a bunch of spirit-nurturing stage cultivators do? They're just putting up a front. I'm going to use the spell formation to kill them now. The 7 Sins formation finally began its slaughter as Su Tong let loose a light cry. 7 types of extremely powerful energy exploded forth, crashing down upon Lin and the others with devastating force. In the face of this overwhelming attack, Lin's eyes turned snowy white as he flicked his crimson realm-piercing nail toward a certain spot in the air. If Lin were to use his energy alone, then perhaps he would be pulverized by the devastating shockwaves of the spell formation. However, the realm-piercing nail was different. It was a formation-destroying, immortal tool to begin with, so it was virtually indestructible. The realm-piercing nail transformed into a crimson line that pierced through the tornado blades before puncturing the flaming dragon's body and striking a certain spot in the air. Before Su Tong and Su Yongnan's astonished eyes, the earth-shattering spell formation that was powerful enough to kill Soul Formation stage cultivators crumbled like a sandcastle in the face of a hurricane. Let's go! Enlin, Dabai, and Xiao Cho all pounced toward the cultivators of the Hall of Seven Sins like ravenous wolves, giving the Hall of Seven Sins cultivators their worst nightmare. Chapter 262. The cultivators of the Hall of Seven Sins were all dumbstruck. Was this a joke? The most powerful spell formation of the Hall of Seven Sins had been broken, just like that. After breaking through the Seven Slaughter formation with lightning speed, Enlin immediately pounced towards Su Tong and Su Yongnan, clearly thinking that these two were the real fat sheep. The three of them charged toward the Hall of Seven Sins, and the cultivators of the Hall of Seven Sins finally came to their senses and prepared for battle. A mere spirit-nurturing initial stage cultivator dares to fight me? Su Tong felt like he had been underestimated, and he stepped forward as a black mist domain began to proliferate outward. The powerful aura of a soul formation initial stage cultivator completely erupted from his body. Gundam 1, Gundam 2, I'll leave these two fat sheep to you. The storage ring of the spirit-nurturing initial stage cultivator flashed as he spoke, and two silver puppets appeared out of thin air before pouncing towards Su Tong and Su Yongnan. You've overestimated yourselves. Su Tong's expression darkened as he unleashed a palm toward the silver puppet. A huge palm materialized from flames and slammed toward the Gundams. Within the huge palm of flames was a black mist that spread like a spider's web. The power of Een was imbued within the black mist, and even steel would be completely melted by the scorching heat and poisonous miasma. One of the Gundams gripped the air in its hand, and a blue light soared into the sky, unleashing a dazzling sword projection that easily sliced through the flaming palm. Furthermore, its momentum didn't diminish as it continued onward towards Su Tong's head. What? Su Tong's heart jolted in shock. He didn't think that the silver puppet would be able to parry his attack so easily. He hurriedly retreated, but to his surprise, the Gundam's blue sword projection also began to extend, leaving a trench of over 100 feet in length in the ground. The tip of the sword also slashed into his body, drawing a line of blood. Su Tong clasped a hand over his chest as he stared in shock at the silver puppet before him. He seemed to have realized what Enlin's smile entailed. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion erupted from nearby. Su Tong turned to find Su Yongnan standing not far away. His Wind King armor had been shattered by a single punch from the other Gundam, and a monstrous force behind the punch even sent the ground flying. Su Yongnan, who was also an early-stage soul formation cultivator, was sent flying like a kite with its string cut. The 20 elite cultivators of the Hall of Seven Sins had also completely switched roles. They were being slaughtered by the three hungry wolves, Enlin, Dabai, and Xiao Cho. Enlin unfurled his wings of wind. With his terrifying speed, he killed with every step he took. The first step, Enlin unleashed his mountain-quaking golden fist, instantly killing a 10th-stage Dao Body Hall of Seven Sins disciple. The second step, Enlin condensed a crimson feather of flames into an arrow, which instantly pierced through a spirit-nurturing intermediate stage elder. The elder's body instantly melted under the terrifying heat of the arrow. The third step, Enlin unsheathed his evil-slaying sword, and his body flashed toward an elder of the spirit-nurturing initial stage. A pitch-black sword projection slashed out, slicing the elder's magic longsword and body in half. The fourth step, with every step Enlin took, he killed a person. All of the elite cultivators of the Hall of Seven Sins trembled in fear. Xiao Cho was even more desperate than him. His half-step soul formation stage power was completely unleashed, and his silver staff was like a crushing mountain crashing down. None of the cultivators were a match for him. Dabai was also very diligent. However, he usually chose to kill cultivators of the Tao body stage or spirit nurturing initial stage. This way, he could finish the battle faster and had a better price-performance ratio. Almost every time they killed someone, they would do the same thing. That was to take their storage ring. That's right, even in such a chaotic and dangerous battle, the first thing they did after killing an enemy was not to continue fighting other enemies. Instead, they would pick up their equipment. Su Tong saw that Xiao Chou was willing to take a beating from the cultivators behind him in order to take the storage rings and weapons of the cultivators he had just defeated. At that moment, he finally understood what kind of situation his Hall of Seven Sins was in. In the eyes of Enlin and the others, they weren't even enemies. Instead, they were a bunch of moving treasure vaults. Retreat. Su Tong realized that the roles of hunter and prey had been reversed, and he immediately made the decision to retreat. The cultivators of the Hall of Seven Sins had wanted to escape a long time ago. In the past, it was always them who killed and looted, but who would have thought that there would be 3 cultivators who were even more ferocious than them this time? They would split the spoils of war after killing their targets, but Enlin and the others were like robbers. After killing a target, they would immediately loot their storage rings and weapons. It was as if they wanted nothing more than to strip off their enemy's clothes. What a terrifying sight. You want to run? No way. Enlin spread open his wings of wind and unleashed the wind sword of the 6 strikes of the war god. A white streak of light revolved around his evil-slaying sword. The wings of wind and the wind sword allowed his speed to break through 3 times the speed of sound in an instant. Clouds of sonic booms appeared wherever his body passed. The white sword light flashed like a clap of thunder, instantly killing 3 elite cultivators. The remaining cultivators were scared witless by this terrifying sword projection, and they ran even faster. Split up, the remaining 4 cultivators fled in different directions. And Lin had just unleashed the wind sword and his aura was a little unstable, so he didn't have the energy to give chase. One of the cultivators was being chased by Xiao Chou, while the other was being chased by Dabai. The other 2 cultivators were ecstatic upon seeing this. They knew that they were the lucky ones, and they ran even faster. Unexpectedly, when one of the cultivators raised his head, he was greeted by a flaming sword projection that pierced through the air. The cultivator's pupils contracted, but as expected of an elder of the spirit nurturing intermediate stage, his reactions were extremely quick, and he instantly conjured up 3 ice walls in front of him. However, this sword projection was imbued with terrifying heat, and even the air around it began to twist and warp. The 3 ice walls had already begun to melt before the sword projection even came into contact with the ice walls. Impossible! The cultivator's eyes widened, and he only had time to let out a cry of surprise before his entire body was engulfed in flames. A woman in a green dress spread open her flaming wings, and she flew through the air like a phoenix, leaving lightning in her wake. She flipped her pristine, jade-like hand lightly, and her storage ring fell into her palm. Then, she flew toward the last cultivator without any hesitation. Su Xiaolan had made her move. With her spirit-nurturing final stage cultivation base, combined with her true dragon and divine phoenix bloodlines, her power had reached an astonishing level. She was virtually invincible among cultivators of the same rank. An expression of despair appeared on the face of Su Xiaolan, who was flying at supersonic speeds. Never would he have thought that their ambush would turn the tables on them. More importantly, they didn't even have a chance to escape. Vice Hall leader Su Yonan was roasted by the dark purple dragon flames of one of the Gundams. Hall leader Su Tong tried his best to escape, but he was blasted to death by over 100 spirit snake tracking missiles. The battle concluded quickly, and the Hall of Seven Sins was completely wiped out. However, to Enlin and the others, the result wasn't important. What was important was how many good things were in their storage rings. Enlin was the biggest winner, and he received 10 storage rings, including Su Tong and Su Yongnan's. The clown received 7 storage rings, Dabai received 3, and Su Xiaolan received 2 storage rings. Su Xiaolan didn't plan to attack initially, but killing all of her enemies was the safest way to deal with the situation. Thus, she killed the 2 cultivators who had a chance of escaping. She saw that Dabai had received the least storage rings, and he looked quite pitiful, so she gave the 2 storage rings in her hand to Dabai. Thus, Enlin had 10 storage rings, the clown had 7, and Dabai had 5. The gap between the rich and the poor had shrunk even further, and Dabai felt a sense of balance in his heart. Now it was time to open all the treasures. Chapter 263. Enlin, Dabai, and Xiao Chou all looked at the storage rings in their hands with nervous expressions. It was as if everyone had a few lottery tickets that were guaranteed to win, but they didn't know what they would get. Who's first? Enlin turned to Xiao Chou and Dabai. Xiao Chou and Dabai turned to Enlin. Enlin shrugged. All right, I'll go first. He hovered the 10 storage rings in mid-air before refining them one by one. He then picked out the 8 storage rings from the elite cultivators of the Hall of 7 Sins. After all, the best storage rings were always reserved for the finale. He pulled out everything from the first storage ring. Clatter, clatter. He poured out a pile of things, which piled up into a small mountain, causing everyone's eyes to light up. 35,000 spirit stones, 3 intermediate rank magic tools, 1 advanced rank magic tool, 5 spirit medicines, and a few random pills and tool refinement materials. It was already a pleasant surprise that there were so many items in one storage ring. The cultivators of the Hall of 7 Sins really were rich. Immediately afterward, Enlin opened up the remaining 7 storage rings to find that the items in them were about the same as those in the first storage ring. There was even an elementary rank spirit tool in one of the storage rings, which was quite a pleasant surprise. After opening up the 8 storage rings, it was time for the main event, which was Su Tong and Su Yongnan storage rings. Enlin opened up Su Yongnan storage ring first. After refining the storage ring, he poured out all of its contents. Clatter, clatter. Everyone drew a sharp intake of breath upon seeing this. The treasures piled up like a small mountain, and Lin chuckled. What evil capitalism! The difference between the treasures and the disciples of the elders is so great. 310,000 spirit stones, 2 elementary rank spirit tools, 1 intermediate rank spirit tool, a dozen or so spirit pills, and many spirit plants and earthly treasures. Just the value of the items in this storage ring alone was comparable to the total value of the previous 8 storage rings. Xiao Chou and Dabai's eyes were bloodshot with envy upon seeing this. F*CK. This difference was infuriating. Next up was Su Tong's storage ring, which was just as astonishing. 350,000 spirit stones, 2 intermediate rank spirit tools, spirit pills, and many spirit plants and earthly treasures, as well as a 9th grade immortal pill. Azure Yang pill. This was something that Enlin had only discovered after using his divine inspection technique. It was extremely effective and could be considered as a miraculous healing medicine. From this battle, Enlin obtained 950,000 spirit stones, 3 intermediate rank spirit tools, several dozen spirit pills, countless spirit plants and earthly treasures, as well as a 9th grade immortal pill. Enlin's heart was filled with relief, and he gave all of his aphrodisiac pills to Dabai. Next, Enlin opened up Xiao and he Dabai Lin, and Xiao Lin he Shun Xiao and Chou. Lin Fan and after that, the clown opened 7 storage rings and obtained over 200,000 spirit stones, as well as countless rare materials and earthly treasures, spirit pills, and miraculous medicines. He had made a killing. Dabai also eagerly opened up 5 storage rings. There were close to 200,000 spirit stones, as well as many valuable spirit plants and earthly treasures, as well as a large number of immortal pills. His emotions were quite stable at the moment. The spoils of war from this battle have finally soothed our wounded hearts. Enlin looked up into the sky with a blissful smile on his face. Dabai and Xiao Chou nodded in agreement. This was already a very satisfying haul. Hey, you guys all have storage rings to play with. I want one too. I haven't had a chance to take a closer look at the storage ring that Big Sister Shun Yin gave me. Su Xiaolan's interest had clearly been piqued by Enlin and the others, and she stroked the intricate ring on her finger with a dainty smile. Enlin and the others were shocked to hear this, and they immediately raised their hands and yelled, "No!" However, it was too late. The storage rings flashed, and all of the treasures were flung out. Then, an earthquake struck. Boom! The ground tremored violently, and everyone's mouths gaped open at the sight of the mountainous pile of items before them. Holy F asterisk CK. So many. And Lin was dumbstruck. The items before him were piled up like a layered cake. The green spirit stones were the base of the mountain, and there were several million of them. The middle layer was filled with all types of tool refinement materials, all of which were exuding extremely powerful energy fluctuations. The middle layer was filled with all types of rare spirit plants, spirit fruits, and immortal fruits. The top layer was filled with all types of spirit pills and immortal pills, as well as many unknown weapons. The entire cake was extremely dazzling under the light of the sun, and it was a breathtaking sight. Su Xiaolan stuck out her tongue and smacked her lips with a slightly embarrassed expression. There seems to be quite a lot. How about you help me count them? And Lin's lips twitched. This feeling of counting money for someone else was quite depressing, especially when it was piled up like a mountain. It was both tiring and depressing to buy, and Xiao Chou had finally found some comfort and self-esteem, but they were instantly crushed by this mountainous pile of treasures, and they felt a little suffocated. As expected, Su Xiaolan was the biggest winner of this trip. The spirit stones were all the same, so Enlin could roughly estimate how many there were after scanning the pile with his divine sense. 7 million spirit stones. Enlin didn't know how to count the tool refinement materials and rare spirit plants either. He used his divine inspection technique to appraise the items, but he was only able to come up with some indescribable names and characteristics. They were all ancient items, and he didn't know how much they were worth, so he decided to calculate them in kilograms. 38 spirit fruits, 10 immortal fruits, 220 spirit pills, 7 immortal pills, 39 spirit tools, and 1 immortal tool. What was worth mentioning was that the immortal tool was called the Divine Flame Bead, and it seemed to be an artifact left behind by Dongfang Ming. After making an inventory of these treasures, Enlin felt like his heart couldn't take it anymore. He had initially thought that he was a nouveau riche, but it looked like Su Xiaolan was the true overnight millionaire, and Lin couldn't help but turn his gaze toward the beautiful woman before him. She seemed to be very happy, and her smile was extremely beautiful and enchanting. She was most likely aware that she was already filthy rich. Whoever married her would be living off a woman to death. Su Xiaolan clapped her hands together as she looked at the sorted treasures. All right, let's distribute the treasures now. And Lin, Dabai, and Xiao Chou all turned to Su Xiaolan with confusion on their faces. What? If it weren't for your help, how would I have been able to obtain the inheritance and all these treasures? So it's time for me to give back to you. Su Xiaolan's smile was genuine, but her expression was extremely determined, as if she had already made up her mind. And Lin, Dabai, and Xiao Chou all shuddered upon hearing this. They didn't think that Su Xiaolan would suddenly do something like this. She looked at the mountain of spirit stones and stroked her chin as she murmured to herself, I'm not in urgent need of spirit stones. And Lin, you still owe Chong a big favor, so you can have all 5. 7 million spirit stones. And Lin, Dabai, and Xiao Chou were all rooted to the spot as if they had been struck by lightning upon hearing this from Su Xiaolan. You're giving me all of it? Are you kidding me? Even someone as thick-skinned as Enlin couldn't help but stutter incoherently. This wasn't just a few hundred or 10,000 spirit stones. It was 7 million spirit stones. This was a fortune comparable to that of a large immortal sect, but Su Xiaolan was giving it all to him, just like that. And she was giving it all away. No, you can't give me all of these spirit stones. Before Su Xiaolan had a chance to reply, Enlin shook his head in refusal. The treasures in the storage ring were given to Su Xiaolan by Shunin. No matter how thick-skinned Enlin was, he couldn't just accept all of these spirit stones. Su Xiaolan's expression froze slightly. I don't want you to Chong a favor for so long, so just take it. I don't lack spirit stones, so what's wrong with you taking my spirit stones to repay your debt? If you don't accept it, then you're not acknowledging me as a friend. And Lin was given a fright upon hearing this. All right, I'll accept it. I'll accept it. He stowed all 7 million spirit stones into the storage ring, and he was so touched that he was about to burst into tears. She was still trying to repay his debt at a time like this. How did he have such a good friend? Including Su Xiaolan spirit stones, he had a total of 14 million spirit stones in his storage ring, which was more than enough to pay for Chong Yi's immortal pill. Su Xiaolan's expression eased slightly upon seeing and Lin accept the spirit stones, as she turned her gaze toward Dabai. Dabai, you have the bloodline of the heavenly wolf, and your primary cultivation is the Tao of wind, so you can have these 2 wind, immortal fruits. Also, this divine essence condensing immortal pill can not only make your wolf-type vital energy seem more boundless, but can also help you break through to the spirit-nurturing final stage, so you can have it as well. Su Xiaolan immediately gave Lin the most valuable immortal fruits and immortal pill she had, and she was not stingy in the slightest. After accepting the immortal pills, Dabai tearfully expressed his desire to follow Su Xiaolan. To put it simply, he didn't want to follow Lin anymore, and he wanted to become Su Xiaolan's beast pet. After all, Lin only gave him the aphrodisiac pill, but Su Xiaolan gave him the best. Of course, this was impossible as the divorce contract required both parties to agree. Hence, Dabai suffered another beating from Lin. Finally, it was Xiao Chow's turn. Su Xiaolan looked at Xiao Chou with a troubled expression. What should she give him? Xiao Chou was already at the half-step soul formation stage and specialized in the cultivation of his body and fire-type powers. There didn't seem to be any immortal pills or immortal fruits in her storage ring that were suitable for Xiao Chou. Should she give him the immortal tool, the divine flame bead? Su Xiaolan brought out the divine flame bead, but Xiao Chou refused to accept it no matter what. That was the most valuable item in her storage ring, and he was too embarrassed to accept it. Su Xiaolan sheepishly put away the divine flame bead and continued to struggle with her dilemma. Chapter 264. Su Xiaolan stared at Xiao Chow's bulb-like eyes, sunken nose, and crooked mouth, and she felt like her eyes were burning. Her heart stirred, and she immediately had an idea. Her storage ring flashed, and a mask constructed from divine azure stone appeared in her hand. This mask is known as the Azure Battle Luo Mask. It's exquisitely crafted and will naturally absorb the vital energy of heaven and earth. After wearing it, it can instantly release the vital energy stored within the mask, granting you immense power for a short period of time. It's a high-ranked spirit tool. Most importantly, it's extremely handsome. Xiao Chow's expression finally changed at the sight of the mask in Su Xiaolan's hands, and he accepted the mask with trembling hands. This was an extremely precious gift, but it was also very suitable for him. Su Xiaolan's gratitude was genuine and sincere this time. She had given away the best things that everyone could use, so how could Lin and the others not understand her intentions? Even so, Su Xiaolan still felt like something was missing. She furrowed her beautiful brows and murmured to herself, I feel like I've forgotten about someone. And Lin heard Su Xiaolan's words and immediately said, My Dabai clown has already received a gift. Who else could I forget? Don't think too much about it. Let's go eat something delicious. Su Xiaolan couldn't think of who it was, so she could only nod with a smile and fly with Lin toward the prefectural city of the Heavenly River State. At the prefectural city of the Heavenly River State, at the Immortal Pearl Pavilion, everyone had a truly luxurious feast here, spending over 60,000 spirit stones on the entire meal. The main course of this extravagant feast was no ordinary food. Instead, it was made from all types of precious ingredients and rare mutant beasts, all of which were meticulously prepared by top-notch immortal chefs. Not only were all the dishes extremely fragrant, but they were also imbued with rich energy. It could be said that they were truly delicious and could also enhance one's physique. Even the sect leaders of large celestial sects did not dare to eat and drink at the Celestial Treasure Pavilion. After all, the things they ate were all valuable treasures. However, Enlin and the others served a table full of dishes. They ate like wolves and tigers. After finishing one table, they called for another to be served. This action made the other tycoons in the Celestial Treasure Pavilion sweat. They had never seen someone who could eat so much, and they had never seen someone who could spend so much money. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, not only did everyone clear away the fatigue from the continuous battles in the dragon's tomb, their bodies were also filled to the brim, as if they had inexhaustible strength. Taking advantage of this good mood, everyone leisurely returned to the Celestial Court. 2 days later, Shoshin United University held its annual conference. The second-year students received a collective commendation for the battle against the ant tribe. The students and teachers who participated in the decapitation operation received generous rewards. However, Enlin didn't care much about these things. After that, it was time for the students' graduation ceremony. Wang Xuanzhan gave a speech to the entire university as the representative of the graduating students. Enlin looked at the domineering man on the stage and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Time really flew by. Who would have thought that even he would be graduating soon? Wang Xuanzhan and Enlin could be considered friends. This was a friendship that had been nurtured during the Tao Exchange Conference of the Four Powers. Enlin was quite dejected that such a reliable person was leaving. After the speech, Wang Xuanzhan also came over to bid farewell to Enlin. The two of them walked along the campus path, attracting the attention of many students. After all, one was the #1 student on the Heavens roll, while the other was the legend of the school. Senior Wang, are you really going to the Wind Plain State? I heard that the executive department of the Celestial Court in the Wind Plain State is constantly embroiled in war. It's very dangerous. And Lin couldn't help but feel a little worried when he heard that Wang Xuanzhan had decided to join the executive department of the Celestial Court in the Wind Plain State. The Wind Plain State and the Holy Glacial Lands were neighbors, and wars frequently broke out there. Although the beautiful snow maidens weren't to be underestimated, the Wind Plain State was extremely ruthless and powerful. In fact, they were even more powerful than the Blood Tribe in the southwest. The Wind Plain State was the place where the wars in the Kingdom of the Nine States were the most intense. It was also the most dangerous executive department of the Celestial Court. A carefree smile appeared on Wang Xuanzhan's chiseled face. I, Wang Xuanzhan, have never feared battle. It's exactly because of the incessant wars there that I chose to go there. Only battle can make me stronger. He then continued in a mysterious voice. Besides, guess who I met there? And Lin blinked. Chun Chun. Wang Xuanzhan's expression shifted. Huh? How did you know? Aside from Chun Chun, who else could pique your interest? And Lin looked at Wang Xuanzhan with a hint of a smile on his face. Wang Xuanzhan chuckled awkwardly. I've been in countless battles since I was born, but there are only two that have left a deep impression on me. One of them was with you, and the other was with him. I lost to you in our first battle, and I accepted that defeat wholeheartedly. After all, you were able to crack open the earth with a single finger, and I was completely unable to block that attack. However, in my battle with Chun Chun, I didn't even dare to move his finger, but I was already intimidated by his aura. Cowering before a battle is the greatest humiliation of my life. I'm going to find him and fight him fair and square. Even if I lose, I'm going to fight until I'm completely defeated. And Lin was a little curious. Then when you met Shin Shun at the Holy Glacial Lands last time, didn't you fight him? Wang Xuanzhan shook his head. We didn't fight. He ran away. And Lin, however, before he ran away, he wanted me to pass on a message to you, Wang Xuanzhan suddenly said. Pass on a message to me? And Lin's eyes widened in shock. Wang Xuanzhan nodded with a peculiar expression. He said that not only does he know the finger of the Heavenly Tao, but he also knows the fist of the Heavenly Tao, the kick of the Heavenly Tao, and the sword of the Heavenly Tao. If you want to learn them, you can go to the Holy Glacial Lands to find him. He can teach you. And Lin, excuse me, and Lin didn't know how to express his current feelings. kick of the heavenly Tao? Why not a fart of the heavenly Tao? Those techniques were special products of the heavenly Tao, although they did sound very bad. His body shuddered at the thought of how he had self-detonated after unleashing the finger of the heavenly Tao, and he instinctively wanted to refuse. Why did Chen say he could teach him? Chen wasn't surprised that Lin was able to learn such a bad SS technique so quickly. There had to be a big secret behind this, but he didn't really want to know. He had a nagging feeling that it would be very dangerous to do so. Forget it. I'll think about it some other time. And Lin shook his head to rid himself of these thoughts. The most important thing right now was to improve his own strength. Only when he was powerful enough would he be able to solve any problem. When that time came, who cared if it was the fist of the heavenly Tao or the kick of the heavenly Tao? He could CK the heavens. After bidding farewell to Wang Xuanzhan, he returned to his residence and swallowed a vital energy pill before immediately beginning his cultivation. The vital energy pill was a 9th grade spirit pill. After consuming this pill, it would greatly increase the speed at which he refined his core through meditation. Although it was quite expensive and only lasted for 2 days, he didn't care. He had money. Tycoons should have their own cultivation methods. And Lin was very much in agreement with this. 2 days later, Lin emerged from seclusion. Taking advantage of the fact that the school was officially on holiday, he went to find Su Qianyan. He could finally repay his debt to Chang'e. Chapter 265. Su Qianyan was about to head home when she saw the man riding on his dog. Classmate Lin, why are you here? A peculiar light flashed through Su Qianyan's bright blue eyes as she spoke in her mellow voice. And Lin landed beside Su Qianyan on his dog with a smile. I'm here to repay my debt. Repay your debt. Su Qianyan blinked. She suddenly clapped her hands together and came to a realization. Oh, classmate Lin wants to repay that 2nd grade immortal pill? Big Sister Chang, he didn't ask you to pay for that immortal pill. Even if you want to repay this favor, you have to raise enough money first. It's too troublesome to only raise money for a year or 2 and then pay back a small portion. There's no need for that. And Lin scratched his head. But I think I've raised enough. Su Qianyan smiled faintly and explained patiently. It's not as simple as you think. This type of immortal pill isn't something that can be bought with just a few 100,000 spirit stones. Don't say that I'm scaring you, but pills like the ultimate creation pill, which is almost comparable to a 1st grade immortal pill, need at least tens of millions of spirit stones. Su Qianyan knew that Lin had earned a lot of money in the past 2 years. She estimated that he had at least 1 million spirit stones, which was an astronomical sum for normal cultivators. However, this amount of money was far from enough to repay that immortal pill. Taking money out like this would incur Chang'e's disgust. She was worried that Lin would feel too pressured after hearing the price of the immortal pill, so she comforted him in a gentle voice. Classmate Lin, take your time to raise the money. Big Sister Chang, you really won't mind if you pay it back later. And Lin stroked his chin. 14. 8 million spirit stones aren't enough either? 14. 8 million spirit stones aren't enough either. Su Qianyan's voice trailed off mid-sentence. She raised her head and asked in disbelief, You have 14. 8 million spirit stones. Yeah, I had some miraculous encounters, And Lin replied shyly. Su Qianyan was shocked speechless. What kind of fortuitous encounter could earn more than 14 million spirit stones in less than 2 years? Even though she was a member of the royal family and was used to seeing all kinds of riches and honor, she still found it unbelievable. After all, this amount of money was an extremely huge amount of wealth, even for celestial immortals of the Void Return realm. Yet, Lin was actually able to gather so much money in 2 years. This was too crazy. Su Qianyan did her best to calm her emotions. Her beautiful eyes stared at Lin. When she saw that he did not seem to be joking, she finally nodded seriously. All right, I'll take you to the Moon Palace. On a vast and boundless silver continent, there were osmanthus trees that swayed like the sea. The fragrance of the osmanthus wafted for 10 li, refreshing the mind. If a mortal were to inhale the fragrance of the osmanthus flowers that were imbued with the power of extreme een, they would be able to extend their lifespan by 10 years. And Lin rode on Dabai and followed Su Qianyun through the forest of osmanthus trees before arriving at an extremely grand and tall palace. The palace exuded a pristine white light, giving it a holy and tranquil appearance. There was a sign at the entrance that read, "Men and dogs not allowed." An apologetic expression appeared on Su Qianyun's face as she turned to Dabai. "Dabai, the Moon Palace has its own rules. You can wait at the entrance for now." And Lin laughed heartily as he leaped off Dabai and stroked its head. "It's a pity that dogs aren't allowed in. Go play on the side." Dabai's eyes widened. What a shock. Men and dogs aren't allowed in. And Lin is allowed in? What does this mean, Woof? And Lin, he didn't expect to be bitten back when he teased Dabai. It looked like he had to teach Dabai a lesson when he got back. When Su Qianyun heard Dabai's words, a blush appeared on her delicate face as she said in a soft voice, "And Lin, that's not what I meant. You're still a man. I'm making an exception to let you in." And Lin's lips twitched slightly. "Do I have to explain so seriously that I'm still a man? Student Su, you're too naive." Following that, Su Qianyun began to drag and Lin into the Moon Palace's territory. And Lin saw many maidservants with veils on their faces fluttering in the wind. When they saw Su Qianyun, they would bow respectfully. It was clear that Su Qianyun's status in the Moon Palace was not low. When they saw Lin, their eyes were filled with curiosity. In particular, when they saw Lin's Adam's apple bulge, their eyes lit up with excitement. And Lin was very familiar with this type of expression. It was the same expression he had when he went to the zoo to look at the giant pandas. The two of them slowly made their way up the stairs. The Moon Palace had a total of 9 levels, and Chong, he lived on the top level. "Shouldn't we get someone to announce our arrival?" And Lin was a little nervous. Su Qianyun shook her head. "There's no need. Big Sister Chong, he was already aware of your arrival the moment you stepped into the Moon Palace. She didn't stop you, which means that you've already been granted permission to meet her." And Lin nodded. He would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous about meeting such a mighty figure. One title after another resounded in his ears, such as the #1 pill refinement master of the Kingdom of the 9 States, the #1 landlord of the Celestial Court, the #1 beauty of the Celestial Court, a mighty figure at the Return to Void Pinnacle stage. All of these titles gave Lin a lot of pressure. After arriving on the 8th level, a voice that he would often hear in his nightmares suddenly sounded. "Huh, Su Qianyun, why did you bring a man here? Wow, isn't this idiot in?" And Lin's chest constricted upon hearing this. "Idiot my *S. He turned to look into the room, and sure enough, he was greeted by the sight of a pristine white rabbit. This rabbit was half as tall as a grown man, and it leaped over to Lin with a pair of glowing, ruby-like eyes as it stared at the man before it. It was holding a jade pestle that was used to pound medicine. "Little you, how could you say that about classmate Lin?" Su Qianyun was a little displeased. "You too harumphed." "Su Qianyun, if you really don't believe me, I'll give idiot an intelligence test right now. Then you'll know." And Lin's legs instantly gave out upon hearing this. He recalled the horror of being knocked unconscious by the jade pestle over and over again. "Hey, stop it, little you. Classmate Lin is here to repay his debt." Su Qianyun pouted as she glared at U2 with her bright blue eyes. Even though she was angry, she was still extremely adorable. U2's eyes lit up with excitement. "Repay his debt? You're going to descend into the mortal world again? I've just about run out of snacks this time. Dried carrots aren't very tasty, so you can buy 80 kilograms. Give me 20 boxes of carrot-flavored chips and 3 tons of freshly squeezed carrot-flavored fries." Hey, that's not it. Hearing a lot of spirit stones this time and wants to repay Big Sister Chong for the pill refinement fees, Su Qianyun hurriedly explained. "Earn a lot of spirit stones?" U2's ears drooped in disappointment upon hearing this. She looked up at Lin and raised the jade pestle in her hand. "How many spirit stones have you earned?" And Lin's heart tightened at the sight of the jade pestle in U2's hand. 14. 8 million. Clang. The jade pestle in Yu Tu's hand fell to the ground as she glared at Enlin. 14. 8 million spirit stones? Do you think I'm an idiot? How is that possible? Enlin had no choice but to release the spatial projection of his storage ring for Yu Tu to see. Yu Tu's body trembled at the sight of the mountain of spirit stones and vital stones. Are you robbing the imperial family? No. There's so much money here. You're robbing the imperial family. That doesn't make sense. How could you do that? There's no way to explain this. Fortune favors fools. Enlin was enraged by Yu Tu's accusation that he was an idiot, and he waved a sleeve through the air. Oomph. Do you really think a bunch of trash like you can fathom the power of I, Enlin? Wah, you're flexing in front of me. Yu Tu let loose a strange cry as she swung the jade pestle in her hand through the air. Bam! The jade pestle had a dizzying effect, and Enlin was caught off guard as the top of his head was struck, and his vision immediately rolled over into the back of his head. Chapter 266. Thankfully, Yu Tu had held back a little, and Enlin's vision merely darkened, but he didn't completely faint from the impact. Su Qinyun hurriedly rushed over to support Enlin before glaring hatefully at Yu Tu's day. Yu Tu harumphed in response, as if this was only natural. It had been a long time since a man had come to the Moon Palace, so she naturally had to teach him a lesson. Seeing as you've taken the initiative to return the money, then come with me to see Big Sister Chang'e. Yu Tu glanced at Enlin, who had already regained consciousness, before turning to lead the way. However, I have to remind you that the palace mistress has been in a very bad mood recently, so you have to be careful with your words and actions. If you make her unhappy, I won't be able to save you. Yu Tu turned to Enlin with a warning after taking a few steps. Enlin nodded with a solemn expression upon hearing this. He was only here to return the money, so all he had to do was behave. On the 9th level of the Moon Palace, one had a panoramic view of the entire Moonland. After making their way around the ancient landscape painting, a clear figure appeared in their field of vision. Enlin caught sight of the woman who was reputed to be the most beautiful woman in the world. Her white dress danced in the gentle breeze, and she was like a lotus flower blooming on a cold night. Her slender body was leaning against a chair, and her slender, lily-white hands were supporting her chin with a languid expression on her face. Her limpid eyes were looking elsewhere, as if she were thinking about something. Chang'e's beauty was even more stunning than Su Qinyun's. She was truly mesmerizing and captivating, as if she were a goddess from above the heavens. Enlin had seen all kinds of goddesses in his life, so he had developed some resistance to them. However, when he saw that flawless face, he was still rooted to the spot and forgot to speak. Big Sister Chang'e, classmate Enlin has collected a lot of spirit stones recently. I brought them here to repay you for saving his life that day, Su Qinyun said with a smile. Enlin came back to his senses and said respectfully, Junior Enlin, thank you for your help. As of now, this junior has already gathered a lot of spirit stones to express my gratitude. I hope you can accept them. The stars change and the years pass by. I still can't understand the colors of this world. Chang'e's cold voice rang out. Her clear eyes reflected the deep and vast starry sky as she shook her head slightly. Enlin blinked his eyes. What did she say? Enlin was a little confused. He didn't know if Chang'e heard what he said. What should he do next? Did he need to repeat it again? What Big Sister Chang'e means is that she's been bored for a long time, Su Qinyun explained to Enlin through telepathy. Enlin suddenly understood. He felt that the words of an expert were indeed different. Those who didn't have a certain level of skill wouldn't be able to understand. Then, as if he had found a life-saving straw, he immediately transmitted his voice to Su Qinyun. Then she didn't seem to answer my question about the spirit stones. What should I do? Big Sister Chang'e is obviously troubled by that question, so she's not in the mood to pay attention to your debt. We can coax her and mention it again when she's happy. Su Qinyun transmitted her voice. Enlin's mouth twitched. Coax Chang'e? He didn't even know how to coax his pet beast when it was throwing a tantrum, let alone a complete stranger. Big Sister Chang'e, what's bothering you lately? You can tell Su Qinyun. Su Qinyun was the first to attack. She made her way over to Chong Yi's side with a bright smile on her face. Chong Yi finally withdrew her gaze and looked at Su Qianyun, who was just as beautiful as her. She sighed softly and said with melancholy, "Thoughts are like the spring grass. The further they go, the more they grow." And Lin was a loss. He couldn't help but transmit his voice to Su Qianyun. "What does Chong Yi mean by that?" She said that when she's bored, it's easy to overthink, like the endless spring grass. "I think she might be a little depressed." "Let me talk to her," Su Qianyun replied. And Lin nodded solemnly and stood quietly to the side. A conversation of this caliber wasn't something an uncouth old man like him could participate in. Su Qianyun and Chong Yi chatted with one another, and Lin couldn't understand a single word Chong Yi was saying, so Su Qianyun was probably the only one who could converse with her so smoothly. You two crouched down beside Lin with her jade pestle in her arms and stared at Chong Yi with wide eyes. And Lin could see that you two was also a little confused, and he transmitted his voice to her. "Little you, do you understand what Senior Chong Yi is saying?" You two shuddered upon hearing this. "Is little you something that an idiot like Lin can call?" "I'm getting goosebumps." And Lin, after scolding Lin, you two continued. "Palace mistress only speaks like this when she's suffering from hipster syndrome. Only Su Qianyun can communicate with her in this state." "Hipster syndrome?" And Lin took a deep breath as his eyes lit up, and it was as if everything had suddenly become clear to him. He had initially wondered if there really was something wrong with his IQ, and he wanted to take a mental test. However, even you two couldn't understand what he was saying, which meant that there was something wrong with Chong Yi. With that in mind, and Lin felt a lot better, and he was also struck by a sense of humor as he listened to the conversation between the two hipster celestial maidens. "Flowers fall in a deep ravine, but no one asks. I've experienced countless reincarnations in the mortal world. I live alone in the palace, and the weather is cold. Big Sister Chong Yi, I'll always be with you, and little you is also here, so I won't allow you to say that. Lost, indecisive. Once I become a celestial immortal, I'll come to the Moon Palace and become a vice palace mistress. That way, I'll be able to always be by your side." The more Lin listened, the more he admired Su Qianyun. She was still able to chat cheerfully with Chong, even in this state. And this showed just how powerful her comprehension ability was. Su Qianyun had already transformed from a little girl who didn't have any talent for languages and couldn't even learn English and Chinese well. She had transformed into a language master that even her teacher, and Lin, had to look up to. And Lin even had the illusion that the beautiful and pure Su Qianyun was Chong Yi's big sister. She was patiently guiding this crazy little sister of hers. Amorous only has the moon in the courtyard of spring, like a dreamer who shines on the falling flowers. I'm like the distant moon, watching the flowers in my dreams. After Chong Yi finished speaking, a faint look of sorrow appeared on her face, and it was especially pitiful. When Lin saw this, he couldn't help but want to hug her in his arms. Of course, life was so beautiful, and Lin wouldn't court death like this. After hearing this, Su Qianyun was stunned, and then she said in surprise, "You really think so?" Chong Yi nodded, and then shook her head. This was the first time Lin saw such a surprised look on Su Qianyun's face, and he couldn't help but ask curiously, "What did Chong Yi say just now?" Su Qianyun replied with a solemn expression, "Big Sister Chong Yi says that she's too perfect. She has many suitors, but they're all people with ulterior motives, so it's very difficult to find a sincere suitor. She herself doesn't have anyone she truly likes either. She felt a little lonely, and she also said that she wanted to fall in love." Chapter 267. And Lin was astonished upon hearing this, and 10,000 mythological beasts were howling in his heart. My God, Chong wants to date someone? This is breaking news. This is breaking news that will shock the entire kingdom of the 9 states. He then realized a very serious problem and transmitted his voice to Lin. Did she say whether she's dating a man or a woman? That's right, this was the most important question. And Lin felt like this question was even more important than the event itself. Su Qianyun blinked in bewilderment. as if wondering why Lin would ask such a redundant question. However, she still replied with a serious expression, "Of course it's a man. If she's looking for a woman, she can just look for me." Gasp! Lin drew a sharp intake of breath. Su Qianyun's words contained far too much information, and he needed some time to process them. Why did Su Qianyun say, "If she's looking for a woman, she can just look for me," in such a natural manner? The meaning behind this was truly thought-provoking. Then, Chang'e really did want to find a man to fall in love with. This was truly earth-shattering. If this news were to spread to the celestial court, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Right at this moment, Chang'e turned her gaze toward Lin. Her gaze was as tender as water, and Lin shuddered at the sight of it. "Lin, accompany me for a walk." A cold voice sounded again, and Lin was like a stone statue upon hearing this. Su Qianyun's eyes widened as she looked at Chang'e, then at Lin. She naturally knew what this sentence entailed, and it was exactly because of this that she was in complete disbelief. As for you two, she had clearly also asked Su Qianyun about the situation. After learning the truth, her expression was exactly the same as Lin's, and she stood rooted to the spot, as if she had been scared out of her wits. What kind of joke was this? Chang'e, who had never been intimate with a man, wanted to date a man. Also, what did he mean by asking Lin to accompany him? Could it be that he wanted to date a spirit-nurturing stage immortal? If word of this got out, the immortals of the celestial court would probably vomit blood out of anger. Chang'e stood up from her chair and walked towards Lin with light steps. Her every move was natural, like the most beautiful scenery in the world, making people unable to take their eyes off her. Seeing Lin standing there in a daze, she couldn't help but feel a little funny. There's no need to be so nervous, right? Although her voice was still cold, there was a hint of intimacy in it, just like when she was talking to Su Qianyun. Lin recovered from his shock and looked at the outrageously beautiful fairy in front of him in amazement. As for Chang'e, he could actually understand it. Chang'e put away her hipster disease. It must be because she wanted to communicate with Lin normally. With this in mind, Lin was once again overwhelmed by the favor. "Come on, accompany me to the osmanthus garden." Chang'e waved her sleeve and pulled Lin along, causing the stars to shift. In the next second, the two of them appeared in a forest of osmanthus trees. Is this spatial teleportation? Lin's pupils contracted slightly. This was the first time he had seen a mighty figure who could use spatial teleportation in such a casual manner. When returned to void stage mighty figures wanted to teleport, they usually had to tear open a rift in space before they could do so. For someone who had not reached the pinnacle of the Tao of space, it was impossible for Chang'e to do something like this with just a casual wave of her sleeve, and he didn't even feel anything from it. Chang'e closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly under the moonlight like dancing butterflies. It smells so good. The osmanthus flowers are in full bloom right now." She smiled faintly and pulled Lin along for a stroll in the garden. Lin blushed slightly as he felt the warmth and softness of Chang'e's hand. Lin, Xiaoyu's gained over 0.5 kilogram in the past year after eating the snacks you've given her. In the past, she was someone who prioritized her figure over delicious food. Who would have thought that she would also gain weight from your snacks? Lin faltered slightly upon hearing this before a smile appeared on his face. "Hee, you can bring Xiaoyu to my place next time. I'll walk her around for you." "Can I really? She stays at the Moon Palace with me every day and never exercises. It's not a bad idea to bring her to the university to hang out with you. Of course, but you have to keep her jade pestle in check first. I'm very scared of that thing. Haha, Xiaoyu has mentioned you in the past. She said that you're too dumb and that you need to be taught a lesson to become smarter." Lin, thus the two of them strolled through the moon forest and chatted casually. The feeling that Chang'e gave him was no longer that of the high and mighty Moon Palace mistress. Instead, she was more like a gentle, natural, and beautiful big sister next door. A gentle breeze blew past, and Chang'e's hair danced in the wind like silk. The faint fragrance of her hair combined with the fragrance of osmanthus flowers to create a particularly intoxicating combination. She raised a hand, and a white flower petal drifted down onto her palm. Chong! He looked at the petals glowing with moonlight and smiled. Now is the time when the osmanthus flowers are at their most abundant. Pluck these osmanthus flowers, whether it's brewing tea or making osmanthus mooncakes. They'll both be excellent. And Lin's interest was immediately piqued upon hearing this. You know how to make osmanthus mooncakes? Chang'e raised her chin slightly with a smug expression. Of course. My mooncakes are the best in the world. Are you interested, Lin? I'll make a few osmanthus mooncakes for you some other day. Sure. Lin immediately agreed. Chang'e was the Moon Palace mistress, so the mooncakes made by her might actually be mooncakes. Just the name alone was enough to scare a lot of people to death. He could even brag to others about mooncakes. You guys make your mooncakes by looking at the moon, but my mooncakes are made by the goddess above the moon. The woman couldn't help but chuckle lightly at Lin's straightforward reply. He probably didn't know just how much of an advantage he was taking. One had to realize that mooncakes made by Chang'e were priceless items in the celestial court, and each mooncake was worth at least an immortal pill. However, Chang'e wasn't going to tell Lin about this. It was rare for her to meet such a shameless person, and she wanted to spend some more time with him. All of the immortals in the celestial court looked at her with glowing eyes. Their scorching gazes made her completely lose interest in interacting with them. As for this spirit-nurturing stage cultivator beside her, although he was also attracted by her beauty when they first met, he quickly became more at ease. It was as if he had forgotten their identities as they conversed normally and strolled along in a harmonious manner. It's very easy to interact with you. I don't know if this is what people on Earth call dating, but to be honest, I don't dislike this feeling. A cold voice drifted into his ears like a faint fragrance, and Lin joked upon hearing this. You don't dislike it, so you like it? A faint smile appeared on Chang'e's face as she looked at the man beside her. Her smile made everything pale in comparison, and even Lin's heart skipped a beat. And Lin drew a sharp intake of breath and only came to his senses after a long while. Chang'e's beauty combined with her smile was simply too alluring. He was almost killed by her beauty. There's a study on Earth that claims that men can extend their lifespans by looking at beautiful women. After seeing your smile just then, I feel like I'm going to live forever. And Lin exclaimed in amazement. Did you smear osmanthus nectar on your mouth? How shameless. Although this was what Chang'e said, for some reason, she didn't feel the slightest bit offended by this kind of compliment. She released Lin's hand and narrowed her eyes at Lin. The game of dating is over. You're the first man to date me, and you might also be the last. You should be proud. And Lin nodded earnestly, clearly agreeing with Chang'e's words. Then can I brag about this to my friends? This was a date with the most beautiful woman in the celestial court, and they even held hands. He could brag about this for 100 years. Chang'e chuckled coldly. You can tell them, but don't blame me for not warning you. If you really do say this, more than half of the people in the celestial court will instantly become your rival in love. And Lin was momentarily dazed upon hearing this. Then a chill ran down his spine. What she said was very reasonable. If he still wanted to stay in the celestial court, this matter must not be known. Although I don't hate being with you, it's still more exciting and blissful to be with Susu. Chang'e looked melancholic. It seems like I'm hopeless, and Lin's mouth twitched. He couldn't respond to this, and he didn't dare to. He had previously guessed that Chang'e had a motive for suddenly falling in love. Perhaps she wanted to correct her sexual orientation, or perhaps she wanted to experience the feeling of heterosexual love. Now it seemed that Chang'e's motive was the former, but unfortunately, she failed. All right, do you know why I paid such a high price to save you? Chang'e suddenly changed the topic and talked about the question that Lin was most concerned about. This matter had been perplexing Lin for a long time. He had a feeling that this matter was definitely not simple. And Lin's mind was instantly lifted, and he asked excitedly, why? Chapter 268. A mysterious smile appeared on Chang'e's face. On that day, your blood essence had completely dissipated and you were transported into the soul-sealing ice coffin. Even she, the enlightened from the celestial court, was powerless to save you. After that, Su Qinyan came to the Moon Palace and begged me to save your life. However, she begged me to no avail, so I decided to refine an ultimate creation pill and infused it with the true power of the moon to save you. This is the truth that you know. However, did you know that there was someone who came to see me even before Su Qinyan? It was also because of his arrival that I decided to pay such a heavy price to save you, a little cultivator whom I had never met before. Lin immediately knew that this was the main point. The real reason why Chong he saved him was because of another person. Who is it? And Lin's eyes lit up, and his heart thumped in his chest. He was extremely excited. Chong Yi's beautiful eyes were clear and bright. She looked at the man beside her and said indifferently, "To be able to make me pay such a heavy price to save you without any hesitation, even the Celestial the Arch would not be able to do so." Guess who else? Even the Celestial the Arch would not be able to do this? And Lin was rooted to the spot, and his mind was in complete disarray. He had initially thought that it would either be the principal or the mysterious true god who had given him the system. However, Chong he said that even the Celestial the Arch would not be able to do this. The Celestial the Arch was already the ruler of the Kingdom of the Nine States, the most powerful true god. Wouldn't it be ridiculous for someone to be more powerful than him? And Lin pointed up at the sky with a shocked expression. "Did the heavens send you here to save me?" Chong Yi's aura was instantly shattered, and her slender body swayed like a lotus flower as she chuckled lightly. "Please, I'm talking about something very serious. Can you be a little more serious?" And Lin wore a bitter expression. "But I really don't know who it is." Chong he looked at Lin's expression, which did not appear to be fake. A sense of doubt welled up in her heart. Could it be that he really didn't know who that person was? Or could it be that the person did not reveal his identity to him and was only secretly taking care of him? She felt that Lin might really not know. So she directly said, "The person who came to the Moon Palace to ask me to save you is called Doubtful Luya." Doubtful Luya? Who is he? And Lin blinked his eyes in confusion. Chong Yi's chest constricted upon seeing this. "Did you go to Tai Chu Continent history class for nothing?" And Lin shook his head and said confidently, "This course is an elective. I'm not interested in history, so I didn't choose it. But if it's really a famous senior, I should have heard his name before." Chong Yi heaved a faint sigh. Compared to the other three on the Tai Chu Continent, he really isn't all that renowned. He hasn't established his own sect, and he has only transcended beyond the three realms to roam the world. You've heard of Sakyamuni Buddha, right? And Lin immediately nodded upon hearing this. He was Buddha Tathagata, the paragon of the Buddhist kingdom and a mighty figure on par with the Celestial Arch. How could he not have heard of him? Sakyamuni Buddha's master is Patriarch Hun Kuan. Patriarch Hun Kuan, Doubtful Luya, Her Majesty Nuwa, and Patriarch Hongjun are known as the four gods of creation on the continent. Do you know what kind of being Doubtful Luya is now? Chong he looked at Lin with a hint of a smile on her face. Lin was dumbstruck upon hearing this. It was as if he was listening to a heavenly book. Doubtful Luya? God of creation? Holy F***CK. This was a being that was millions of times more terrifying than Long Ao Yin and Zhao Ritian. When did he become associated with such a being? Was he the main character in the story? Did he possess some kind of unfathomable ability? Did this world need him to save it? Lin's mind raced as he stood rooted to the spot like a statue. The impact of this was far too great. A chilly night breeze blew past, and the shadows of the trees danced in the wind. A crystalline white petal landed on Lin's head, but he didn't notice it in the slightest. Chong, it didn't disturb him and allowed him to digest this on his own. After what seemed like an eternity, Lin finally came to his senses. Ahem, then do I still have to pay you back for helping me refine the immortal pill? Chong, she slapped her forehead in exasperation. Never would she have thought that this would be the first thing Lin would say after digesting this information for so long. Did Doubtful Luya tell you that I'm supremely talented and that I need to save the world or something like that? No, Chong, he replied angrily. Also, since you've asked for the immortal pill, don't go back on your word. I won't scam you. I'll only charge you for the cost, 12 million spirit stones. And Lin nodded sheepishly. At the same time, he was also a little disappointed. So he wasn't the savior of the world. Then, even more questions surfaced in his mind. He couldn't help but ask, what does Doubtful Luya look like? What's his relationship with me? Why did he save me? Faced with a series of questions, Chong, he was a little dispirited. Doubtful Luya is very good-looking. As for the rest, I don't know either. You can ask him yourself. And Lin was stunned upon hearing this. Doubtful Luya wasn't his beast pet. He didn't even know where he was, so why would he ask? As for saying that Doubtful Luya was very good-looking, then that old grandpa on Earth who gave him the system could be eliminated. If he was very good-looking, then there was no way he would transform himself into an old man when he went to save someone. Wouldn't that be a waste of his looks? And Lin's heart gradually calmed down. A super mighty figure of this level was far too far away for him. Even if there was some kind of connection between them, he didn't have the power to find the answer right now. In his current situation, it was enough to know that he had a powerful backer who cared about him. This was a backer who was even more badass than the Celestial Arch. He handed over the 12 million spirit stones in his storage ring to Chang'e. After repaying his debt, and Lin felt a sense of relief wash over him. He was the type of honest man who would feel uncomfortable whenever he was in debt. So, this was probably a bad habit that he couldn't change. There were only 2,800,000 spirit stones left in his storage ring. He had gone from super tycoon to super tycoon, so his wealth had dropped by an entire level. This wasn't a pity. After all, he still had to buy a big present for Su Xiaolan. If he gave Su Xiaolan money directly, she definitely wouldn't accept it, so he could only express his sincerity through gifts. Chang'e unleashed her spatial teleportation, and the two of them returned to the Moon Palace. Su Qianyun and Yu Tu stared blankly at the two of them, as if they were witnessing something miraculous. Chang'e's melancholy had already disappeared, and she made her way over to Su Qianyun with a faint smile on her face. What's with that expression? There's nothing going on between me and Enlin. But big sister, you're holding hands with him. Su Qianyun's chest rose and fell as a faint blush appeared on her face, as if she had just said something very embarrassing. Silly Su Qianyun. Chong, he flicked Su Qianyun's forehead with a slender finger. Didn't I tell you that holding hands won't get pregnant? Only kissing will. Su Qianyun's blush deepened upon hearing this, and her face was like an adorable apple. Then you didn't kiss, did you? Chong. He shook her head with a serious expression. No, I only kissed Su Qianyun. And Lin stood off to the side and chose to ignore her. He really wanted to retort, but he knew that if he were to say anything now, he would definitely be screwed. You two stood off to the side in silence. She had already grown accustomed to this, and she stared at Lin with her big, round eyes, as if she were contemplating something. And Lin, Chong, it doesn't care if you know about this, but I hope you won't tell anyone. A delicate female voice suddenly sounded. And Lin knew what you two was talking about, and he nodded with a solemn expression. Don't worry, I'll definitely keep my mouth shut. After chatting for a while longer, and Lin and Su Qianyun left the Moon Palace on his dog. The month-long vacation was upon them again. Chapter 269. And Lin returned to his living quarters and began tempering his core. The beast core within his body was already glowing brighter and brighter, resembling a small golden sun in a sea of vital energy. The energy imbued within the beast core was already extremely abundant and had reached a certain threshold. As long as he could break through this threshold, he would be able to progress to the next rank. He was able to progress to the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage within a short span of a year, and this was all thanks to the divine liquid creation technique and the wings of true fire, which had greatly refined his body and allowed his sea of vital energy to become even more vast. With a solid foundation, he would be able to progress even faster. The next day, Lin went to Do Shui Palace and used Emperor Zue's immortal pill invitation to ask Shi the Enlightened to refine a 5-elemental essence destruction immortal pill. This was a 6th-grade immortal pill that could condense the power of the 5 elements in a cultivator. Lin cultivated the evergreen technique, the wings of true fire, the divine liquid creation technique, and the earth lotus supreme skill, all of which were 5 elemental cultivation methods. He felt like using the 5 elemental essence destruction pill to condense the power of the 5 elements would be an opportunity for him to progress to the next rank. Thus, he swallowed the immortal pill right in front of Shi. This was an experiment. Even if he couldn't make a breakthrough, it would still be worth it if he could further condense the power of the 5 elements. Soon, he seemed to have sensed the power of the immortal pill, and his blood began to boil. A blue liquid covered his skin, and a lotus flower imbued with the power of the earth appeared on his glabella. Crimson wings of fire also appeared around his body. The green halo appeared above his head again, and a powerful life force burst forth. His 4 cultivation methods glowed with vigor. Ishi's eyes widened, and his breathing accelerated. It's here again. This is the fundamental transformation of the immortal pill. Boom! Vital energy suddenly surged in the sky. Immediately afterward, a huge amount of vital energy converged above Lin's head like a massive tidal wave. The cyclone was over 1,000 feet in length, and it covered half the sky, creating a massive commotion. In the end, the vital energy surged into Lin's body like a dragon bowing its head, helping him complete some sort of transformation. Ishi collapsed to the ground in shock, and his mouth gaped open. This is a true, pill-consuming mighty figure. Not only does eating an immortal pill trigger a fundamental transformation within one's body, it can also help one break through to the next rank. How terrifying is this? The storm of vitality gradually subsided, and Lin stood up. His eyes were bright as he felt the leap in his strength. From this day forth, he was a spirit-nurturing intermediate stage cultivator. Congratulations to fellow Taoist and Lin for successfully breaking through. Ishi immediately came over to offer his congratulations. He looked at Lin as if he were looking at an idol. This is all thanks to the immortal pill refined by Senior Ishi. And Lin also joined his fists in a grateful salute toward Ishi. Not at all, not at all. It's clearly fellow Taoist's pill-swallowing posture that no one can match. Ahem. I was wondering if Mr. Lin could teach me how to consume immortal pills. Ishi asked sheepishly. Taking the initiative to ask others how to take pills was actually a very rude thing to do, especially when Lin's method of taking pills might be combined with some unique secret method. This was a cultivator's heritage, and, generally, it would not be disclosed to outsiders. However, Lin's pill-swallowing technique was simply too astonishing, and Ishi was unable to repress his urge. Don't worry, I'll definitely reward you to your satisfaction. Ishi continued, as if he was afraid that Lin would refuse. Lin scratched his head with a perplexed expression. What the hell is this? Isn't taking pills just swallowing them and then digesting them? It's like someone suddenly coming over and asking you to teach them how to eat. F***CK. Even a 3-year-old knows how to eat, and you want me to teach you how to eat? Are you retarded? Ishi saw the perplexed expression on Lin's face and knew that he had no intention of continuing the conversation, so he knew that he had no chance. It was normal that Lin didn't want to disclose his unique secret method. After a brief moment of disappointment, Ishi quickly regained his composure. Even if Lin didn't tell him, he would still rely on his own willpower to figure out the method of taking immortal pills. This was his pride as the eldest disciple of Lord Latsu, and there was nothing that could stump him. And Lin saw Ishi's sudden disappointment, then excitement, then determination, and immediately stood up to leave. In the sky, he looked toward his system nervously. The system's cultivate hard and improve every day had left a deep impression on him. Thankfully, he had encountered many miraculous encounters recently and was able to break through to spirit-nurturing intermediate stage within a year. Now that his cultivation base had changed, The requirements for the system's cultivation base tab should also change. Breakthrough to Spirit Nurturing Final Stage. Condition: slay an Emperor-level sea monster with your own hands. Enlin's expression faltered. This Emperor-level sea monsters were the same as Emperor-level monsters in the mortal world. They could only be referred to as Emperors after reaching Soul Formation stage. As for sea monsters, they could be found in both the West Sea and the East Sea. As long as he searched diligently, he would eventually be able to find one. The essence of this mission was to allow him to battle above his rank. If Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 pummeled the sea monster to the brink of death, then he would land the killing blow. Under these circumstances, the system would also count as slaying the sea monster with your own hands, so this mission wouldn't be too difficult. Enlin definitely wouldn't reject a system mission that could help him increase his cultivation base. Furthermore, this mission had a certain degree of feasibility. After all, even prodigies would have to spend several years to achieve a breakthrough if they didn't have a few miraculous encounters. Enlin didn't want to waste so much time. If he did, he wouldn't be able to catch up to Su Xiaolan. In that case, I'll go to the EC to kill sea monsters this holiday. He made up his mind and left without delay. He would take his beast pets, Xiao Cho and Dabai, and set off at dawn. And Lin suddenly felt like something was missing after formulating his plan. Why do I feel like I've forgotten someone? He furrowed his brows. Take his beast pets, Xiao Cho and Dabai. Holy F *CK. Where's my Xiao Hong? And Lin's body trembled as he yelled. He suddenly recalled that little red flower, and his eyes widened in shock. Dabai also came to a realization upon hearing Lin's yell. Woof! I was wondering why I felt like something was missing recently. It turns out that big sister Hong has disappeared. She's still hiding in Su Xiaolan's arms and hasn't come back yet. And Lin grimaced. It seems like she hasn't come out since she hid in Su Xiaolan's arms at the Winter Dragon Tomb. It's been a few days and we've forgotten about her. Big Sister Hong's presence is becoming more and more inconspicuous. She's probably been taken to the Vermilion Bird sect by Su Xiaolan already. Xiao Cho shook his head in resignation, and Lin slapped his forehead and heaved a forlorn sigh. Forget about her. Let her photosynthesize at the Vermilion Bird sect. Time is of the essence. We have to set off for the EC now. Dabai stuck out his tongue. Aren't you going to find a few more teammates? Woof. Xiaolan has to go back to the sect to consolidate Xunyin's inheritance. Su Qianyun has to accompany Chong, and Big Brother Chung has to go into seclusion at the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect. He won't come out until he breaks through to the Spirit Nurturing Final Stage. And Lin also sighed with emotion at the mention of Xianyuan Chung. There were now 2 Spirit Nurturing Final Stage cultivators in their class. Su Qianyun lived up to her nickname of Tao Fanatic. She was the fastest student in their class to reach the Spirit Nurturing Final Stage. Su Xiaolan accompanied Lin on a trip to the Winter Dragon Tomb, where she encountered a series of miraculous encounters and finally progressed to the Spirit Nurturing Final Stage. When Xianyuan Chung heard this news, he felt like he was going to explode. He was a student with a letter of recommendation from a true god. To have his cultivation base surpassed by 2 of his classmates in a row was a massive blow to his confidence. Hence, Lin wasn't surprised that Xianyuan Chung would make such a decision. Instead, he felt like this was the big brother Chung he knew. It's just an Emperor-level sea monster. It's more than enough for us to go. Lin wore a confident expression. How could he be afraid of a soul formation stage sea monster? Let's go to Bai Xiaoqiu. Let's go to the East Sea. Chapter 270. The Kingdom of the 9 States and the East Sea were separated by the 100 Tribe territory. That territory was much larger than the Kingdom of the 9 States and was home to over 100 tribes of all sizes. And Lin and the others definitely wouldn't fly to the East Sea. That was completely unrealistic and would only tire Dabai to death. Their only advantage was money, so they had to use a few long-distance teleportation spell formations to successfully arrive at the coast of the East Sea. Wow, is this the East Sea? I can't see the end of it. And Lin stood on the beach and sighed with emotion as he looked at the sea and sky before him. Blue, clear, boundless, and magnificent. This was his first impression of the East Sea. The place they were currently at belonged to the territory of the Pearl Kingdom. The Pearl Kingdom was ruled by the Pearl Tribe. They were one of the 100 tribes, and their appearances were very interesting. Their bodies were white with a hint of yellow, and they had human-like hands and feet. However, they were very short, and their bodies were also round. From afar, they looked like a group of pearls that had become spirits, walking on the flat ground. Mr. and Lynn, this is the region of the sea closest to the seven demon realm. A large pearl pointed forward with a solemn expression on her round face. Her name was Chi-Chi, and she was a high-class tour guide that Lynn had hired for 10,000 spirit stones. She was a renowned beauty in a nearby Bolon city. She had the roundest, smoothest, and purest white body. She was indeed very pleasing to the eye. And Lynn nodded. The Seven Demon Realm was a very famous region of the East Sea. Powerful sea monsters often appeared and attacked nearby ships. Some bloodthirsty sea monsters would even land on land and slaughter the living beings along the coast. Legend had it that there were 7 great demon monsters ruling over this region of the sea. Hence, this region of the sea was also known as the Seven Demon Realm. If it weren't for the fact that Lynn had offered a high price and was quite powerful, Chi-Chi wouldn't have taken a risk to bring them here. All right, let's go back and prepare. We'll set sail tomorrow. And Lynn's eyes were filled with excitement. The 7 warlords of the sea are nothing. I'll crush them one by one. I'm going to become the Pirate King. Everyone couldn't understand Lynn's inexplicable words, but they knew that they would be going out to sea tomorrow. The streets of billowing Wave City were filled with round white pearls, and occasionally, 1 or 2 human figures could be seen. These humans were most likely cultivators from the Kingdom of the 9 States who had come here to train. Judging from their height, they stood out from the rest of the group, and it was quite common for them to accidentally bump into the doorframe of a restaurant. As a high-level tour guide, Chi-Chi's tour arrangements were comprehensive. And Lynn and the others toured around with her, and it was quite a relaxing experience. In the evening, Chi-Chi even found a special restaurant and ordered a table full of seafood. There were shrimp, crabs, shellfish, fish, and birds. And Lynn, Dubai, and the clown were so engrossed in eating that they forgot everything else. In terms of taste, the seafood here was the best they had ever eaten. After eating to their heart's content, everyone checked into an inn that catered to outsiders. 3 large merchant ships have been prepared. The top level of the merchant ships will be loaded with some goods, as well as a lot of fragrant food that will attract sea monsters. Chi-Chi sat in front of Lynn and reported the preparations for their trip to sea. The ocean was extremely vast, and diving into the ocean to find Emperor-level sea monsters was like looking for a needle in a haystack. The best way was to get them to come looking for them, and the 3 merchant ships were the best bait. Just as everyone was chatting in the room, the ground began to tremor lightly. Boom! An explosion erupted in the distance. It sounded like a violent collision. And Lynn's expression shifted, and he stood up. Chi-Chi also felt something. She immediately opened the window and looked towards the direction of the city gate. Then, she saw the rising flames and thick smoke. Her face turned slightly dark, and she exclaimed, "It's the sea monsters. They're attacking the city. The sea monsters are attacking the city." And Lynn's, Dubai's, and Xiao Chao's eyes lit up at the same time. They were just thinking of seducing them, but they came to them of their own volition. And Lynn and the others were not going to let this opportunity slip by. Let's go. Let's go meet the sea monsters of the East Sea. And Lynn flew into the sky, excitedly on dogback, toward the city gate. Sea monsters are adept at using poison. Be careful. Chi-Chi had not reached the spirit-nurturing stage yet and was unable to fly, so she could only shout a warning through the window. Don't worry. And Lynn flew toward the city gate without looking back. These sea monsters were not a threat to him. The evergreen technique had the ability to nullify all poisons. Perhaps only the poison of the monster emperor could strike fear into his heart. At this moment, smoke rose up from the city gate. Pearls glowed under the moonlight as they unleashed attack spells on the city wall, forming a long defensive line of cannons. General Pearl King, there are too many of them. The city is going to fall at this rate. One of the Pearl soldiers yelled. Hold on. I've already requested reinforcements from the Lang City. They'll be here soon. A large and round pearl soldier spoke. There was a layer of golden keratin armor on his skin, making him appear particularly eye-catching. Just as he was speaking, a huge tentacle suddenly extended to the top of the city wall before sweeping downward with unstoppable force. Countless pearl soldiers wailed in anguish as they were knocked off the city wall. Ha ha ha! Pearl King, come out and die! A massive octopus over 100 feet tall appeared on the city wall and roared in an arrogant manner. Boom! Boom! Rumble! A black figure crashed relentlessly into the city gate, but the pearl soldiers were unable to inflict any damage to it. Deep Sea Octopus King, Dark Water Turtle. The Pearl King's expression darkened as he looked at the two gargantuan creatures attacking the city. Me too. At this moment, a semi-transparent creature with lightning crackling all over its body yelled from among the sea monsters. Pearl King, stop your futile struggle. The Crimson Demonic Emperor only wants 10,000 pearl soldiers as sacrifices. If you open the city gate, we promise we won't start a massacre. Otherwise, we'll slaughter everyone in the city. The Pearl King's body swayed at the sight of the creature bathed in lightning. Thousand Lightning, Jellyfish King. Looks like the Crimson Demonic Emperor is dead set on destroying Bolan City. The Pearl King's cultivation base was only at the spirit nurturing intermediate stage, about the same as the Deep Sea Octopus King and the Dark Water Turtle King. However, the Thousand Lightning Jellyfish King was at the spirit nurturing pinnacle stage. If it really went all out, it might be able to tear the Pearl King off the city gate. I'll give you 10 seconds to think about it. Either you open the city gate and we leave after capturing 10,000 pearl soldiers, or you slaughter everyone in the city. The Jellyfish King's voice was like a clap of thunder, and it was so loud that it could even travel into Bolan City. The residents of Billowing Wave City were scared out of their wits. 3 great demon kings had gathered together to attack the city, so how could a single Pearl King stand a chance? The Jellyfish King's countdown had already begun, and all the residents of the city fled for their lives. From a bird's-eye view, one could see a pile of pearls rolling around on the ground, creating an extremely chaotic spectacle. Time's up. Looks like you prefer to be slaughtered in the city, Pearl King. The Jellyfish King cackled sinisterly. On the city wall, the pearl soldiers were unleashing spell techniques to bombard the sea monster army down below. Boom! 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 The Dark Water Turtle King rammed the city gate with even greater force, and spider webs had already appeared on the city gate. Pearl King, the spell formation can't hold on much longer. The city gate is about to be breached. A pearl soldier yelled. A suicidal expression appeared on the Pearl King's face as it transformed into a streak of white light and pounced toward the Dark Water Turtle King. Hee hee, I was waiting for you to strike. The Jellyfish King cackled as it transformed into a dazzling bolt of lightning and charged toward the white streak of light. Boom! The two of them collided, and a figure was knocked back amid an explosion of lightning. The white figure crashed heavily into the city wall, causing the thick wall to cave in. Pearl King. The soldiers on the city wall instantly panicked upon seeing this. The figure that had been knocked back was none other than the most powerful being among them, the Pearl King. Expressions of despair appeared on the faces of all the soldiers. Even the Pearl King was unable to withstand a single attack from this jellyfish. Was Bolan City really going to fall? Another earth-shattering boom erupted as the Dark Water Turtle King smashed a massive hole into the city gate. The sea monster army cheered loudly as they swarmed into the city through the hole. Ha ha! None of the pearl soldiers in the city will escape. The Lightning Jellyfish King charged toward the city wall in a heroic manner, preparing to slay all of the soldiers defending the city. Have you asked for my permission before trying to bully the adorable pearl soldiers? A cold voice suddenly sounded. A massive golden fist of lightning fell from the sky before crashing heavily into the Jellyfish King's body, lighting up the entire sky. Boom! The invincible Jellyfish King was smashed into the ground by the golden fist of lightning, and a terrifying explosion of energy swept through the surroundings, tearing apart several dozen sea monsters nearby. In the sky above, a mighty figure riding a white dog appeared before the eyes of all the Pearl soldiers like a savior. And Lin had made his entrance. Chapter 271. A bolt of lightning flashed through the cloud of dust, and blue blood flowed from its body. It was the Jellyfish King that had been punched by Lin. You're human cultivator? The Jellyfish King was astonished. That's right. And Lin drew his evil-slaying sword as he rode atop his huge white dog. His sword intent surged through the air as if he were a peerless sword immortal. This is a matter between the sea monsters and the Pearl tribe. Why are you sticking your nose into this? If you disrupt the Crimson Demonic Emperor's plan, you will face the most vicious retaliation from the sea monsters. I'll give you a chance now. Leave this place. The Jellyfish King knew that Lin wasn't an ordinary person, so it used its big brother to try and get him to stop. The Crimson Demonic Emperor is an emperor-level sea monster. Lin's eyes lit up. The Jellyfish King clasped its blue tentacles behind its back. Of course, it's not something you can mess with. Lin chuckled. Then I can't let you go. The Jellyfish King was slightly taken aback by Lin's reply. Xiao Cho, go guard the gate. Lin had already leaped away from Dubai. White wings of wind spread open on his back, and a white light revolved around his sword. Xiao Cho landed in front of the city gate like a fiend celestial. He unleashed his domain, and a sea of flames within a radius of 100 feet turned all the sea monsters charging toward the city gate into ashes. The Pearl soldiers were all dumbstruck by Xiao Cho's attack. This is a God Realm domain. Anyone with a God Realm domain was a powerful being in the Pearl tribe. Who would have thought that it was that human cultivator's beast pet? Just as they were in shock, an even more shocking scene unfolded. The most powerful being in the sea monster army, the Jellyfish King, was sliced into several dozen pieces in the blink of an eye by Lin, who had transformed into a streak of white light. The Pearl King stared blankly at the Jellyfish King, who had been sliced into pieces. At the city gate, the Blackwater Black Tortoise's shell was also smashed by the Monkey's Club. Torrential black flames burned hundreds of sea demons into ashes. This endless black flame domain was the absolute barrier of Bolon City. Lin landed on the ground, and a golden ripple spread out. All of the sea demons in the surrounding 1,000 feet foamed at the mouth and fainted on the ground. Divine Might Technique. The suppression of his cultivation allowed Lin to unleash the full potential of his godly might art. Lin continued onward as if he were the ruler of the world, and countless sea monsters fainted before him. The sea urchin warriors, who were the weakest among them, exploded and died under the impact of the powerful king's might. The final spirit-nurturing stage sea monster, the deep-sea octopus king, was scared out of its wits. After 5 of its tentacles had been torn off by Dubai, it frantically tried to escape into the sea. Unexpectedly, a 10-meter-tall black brick fell from the sky and firmly pressed down on the ground. Don't kill me, you can't kill me. If you kill me, the Crimson Demonic Emperor will never forgive you. The deep-sea octopus king yelled. During this time, its remaining tentacles were torn off by Dubai and blood gushed forth from them. Oh, if I kill you, will the Crimson Demonic Emperor come here to seek revenge? Lin stood on the black brick and asked curiously. The deep-sea octopus king threatened, of course. If it senses that all 3 of us have fallen in Bolon City, the Crimson Demonic Emperor will definitely lead the sea monster army to raze Bolon City to the ground within 2 days. If you let me go, I can plead with the Crimson Demonic Emperor to spare your life. Lin smiled. The Crimson Demonic Emperor will come here of its own accord? That's great. Then, under the deep-sea octopus king's incredulous gaze, the mountain-quaking lightning fist crashed down, and its body was completely engulfed in an explosion soon. The battle came to an end. The sea monster army was completely annihilated. Lin, Xiao Cho, and Dubai returned to the city wall and were treated like heroes by the Pearl Tribe soldiers. Cheers and celebrations reverberated throughout the city wall. Thank you, human friends, for protecting the city and saving the people of Bolon City. The Pearl King rolled around on the spot with excitement in his voice. Apparently, rolling around on the spot was a gesture of gratitude from the Pearl tribe, similar to how humans knelt down and kowtowed. "It's nothing. Please rise, General. We only came here because we couldn't stand the cruelty of the sea monsters." Unlin helped the rolling Pearl King to his feet with a solemn expression. The Pearl King replied respectfully, "Then I would like to ask my human friends to move to my manor so that I can properly entertain all of you." Unlin thought about it for a moment. He still had to wait for the Crimson Demonic Emperor to come to him anyway, so it wasn't a bad idea to move to a better environment. He got on Abai's back and went to pick up the beauty of Bolan City, Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi looked up at Unlin and the others with reverence in her eyes. She had witnessed the battle outside Bolan City from the restaurant in the distance, so she knew a little about it. Wasn't the monstrous monkey king that had appeared when the city gate was breached this adorably ugly monkey lying on Unlin's shoulder right now? They had only gone to join in on the fun, but who would have thought that they would suddenly become the heroes who had saved Bolan City? Chi-Chi was both astonished and in awe at the same time. She stared at Unlin with tears in her large eyes, but unfortunately, Unlin didn't respond to her seductive gaze at all. The Pearl King was a general of Billowing Wave City, as well as the city lord. His mansion had pavilions, terraces, and pavilions, and the scenery was picturesque. There were also beautiful maids. It was the best place in the entire city. Since Unlin had already eaten dinner, they only ate some fruits and drank a jug of wine in the guest hall before enjoying a group of beautiful pearl dancers. The Pearl tribe's most frequent dance move was the roll. One could see the female dancers rolling in all types of formations, creating a series of beautiful white arcs. It was actually quite beautiful. The Pearl King sat on the main seat and watched with great interest. "Don't worry about the Crimson Demonic Emperor, Mr. Unlin. I've already reported everything that has happened here to the king through a voice transmission talisman. The king has also agreed to send some top-notch cultivators to assist Bolan City," the Pearl King announced as he sipped on some wine. Unlin didn't really mind. After all, he had the two Gundams, so taking care of an Emperor-level sea monster shouldn't be an issue. The next day, news of Unlin's exploits spread throughout the entire Bolan City. When Bolan City was being attacked by the sea monsters, the Black Flame Monkey King, the Divine Wind White Dog, and Sword Immortal Unlin stepped in and defeated the sea monster army, thereby becoming the heroes of Bolan City. Unlin was quite elated to be referred to as Sword Immortal by the Pearls of Bolan City. This was a monumental transformation from a self-proclaimed title to a respectable title. Even though he was being referred to by a bunch of pearls, it was still something to be proud of. It was also on this night that the Pearl Kingdom's most powerful cultivator arrived. Unlin had initially thought that the powerful being would be a super badass, round, and white pearl. However, he later discovered that it was a gorgeous beauty, not a beautiful woman in the pearl sense, but a beautiful woman in the human sense. Chapter 272. Mr. Unlin, thank you for everything you've done for Bolan City. My name is Bei Lian, and I'll be taking over the protection of Bolan City from now on. A woman in a blue dress appeared before Unlin and spoke in a cold voice. She had the transcendent disposition of a celestial maiden, and her eyes were as clear as water with a hint of coldness. Her skin was as fair as snow with a hint of pink, as if water could be squeezed out of it. Most importantly, she had a pair of intricate dragon horns. Mr. Bei Lian is from the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas? Unlin was a little surprised. Bei Lian nodded lightly. I'm the 11th princess of the Dragon Court. I've been traveling around the Pearl Kingdom for the past 2 days, and after hearing about this from the king, I came to take care of it. The Dragon Court protects the coastal kingdoms, so you don't need to interfere. Just leave it to me. That's fine. I'm here to help as well. I have a mission that requires me to slay the Crimson Demonic Emperor with my own 2 hands, so please let me take care of that sea monster. And Lin spoke with a sincere expression. He was still waiting to kill the Crimson Demonic Emperor, and now that it had come knocking on his door, he couldn't just let it go. Bei Lian's brows furrowed slightly. Are you kidding me? You're only a spirit-nurturing stage cultivator, and you want to kill the Crimson Demonic Emperor? Don't worry, I have a trump card that can take care of it, and Lin replied. What trump card? 2 soul formation stage puppets. I don't believe you. Bei Lian shook her head. She had already lost her patience with Lin. I'll prioritize the safety of Bolan City, and I won't hold back when necessary. You're on your own. In her heart, Lin had already been labeled as an arrogant person. Emperor-level sea monsters were not to be trifled with. A spirit-nurturing stage cultivator was asking her to let go of a soul formation stage sea monster? Did he really think he was invincible just because he had slain a few spirit kings? If it weren't for the fact that Lin had saved Bolan City once, she wouldn't even bother talking to Lin. Lin sighed helplessly. Then let's rely on our own abilities. Bei Lian harumphed coldly and left without saying anything else. Dabai shook his head. They're both peerless prodigies from the Dragon Court, but Shun Yin gives off a better vibe. It had experienced Shun Yin's experience in the Winter Dragon Tomb, so it couldn't help but compare the two of them. She's not wrong to make such a decision. After all, not every cultivator of the spirit-nurturing stage is as talented as me and can slay a spirit beast emperor of the soul formation stage, so it's normal for her to be apprehensive. But the founder of the last hit style is here. Why would I be afraid of being killed? Lin chuckled, his face full of confidence. Dabai's lips twitched upon hearing this. This is the first time I've seen someone who can boast about themselves after being looked down upon. Big brotherin, I'm impressed. Lin pursed his lips. She's no match for Shun Yin either. Dabai faltered slightly before coming to a sudden realization. Big brotherin is right. In order to welcome Bei Lian's arrival, a lavish banquet was held at the Pearl King's manor. Lin and the others were also invited to the banquet, and they immediately dug in at the sight of the bountiful seafood. The Pearl King raised his wine glass. It is a great honor for Bolan City that Xiaolong Nu is willing to help us fight the Crimson Demonic Emperor. Let's toast to Xiaolong Nu. Cough, cough. Lin, who was in the midst of eating and drinking delicacies, instantly choked upon hearing the term Dragon Princess. Lin waved his hands apologetically at the sight of everyone's bewildered expressions. Sorry, I ate too fast and choked. Bei Lian's brows furrowed slightly as she labeled Lin as a vulgar person in her mind. Lin repressed his urge to laugh as he toasted Xiaolong Nu with the Pearl King. Shun Yin already had the title of Heavenly Dragon Maiden, so Bei Lian had the title of Xiaolong Nu. That's right. But he didn't know where her Yangwu was, so he better not be bullied by Yin Dao Zhang. The banquet concluded, and everyone returned to their rooms to rest. Deep into the night, the luminous pearls on the city walls glowed with a dazzling light. The sea breeze howled in a violent manner. Many Pearl soldiers were patrolling the city gates. The Crimson Demonic Emperor was most likely going to attack in a day or two, so the number of soldiers stationed on the city walls was several times greater than before. There were also many powerful beings who had been transferred from other parts of the Pearl Kingdom. A woman in a blue robe was standing on the city wall. The whistling sea breeze made the light muslin stick closely to her body, revealing her graceful and slender curves. Lin climbed up the city wall and made his way toward the beautiful figure. Hi, Dragon Princess. You're out for some fresh air this late at night? The woman turned to look at him expressionlessly before turning back to look at the sea in the distance. Why are you out at this hour? To look at the night scenery? Lin faltered slightly upon hearing this. He didn't think that Xiaolong Nu would be so sarcastic. I can't sleep, so I came out for a walk. Hee, the monkey on your shoulder and the white dog behind you also can't sleep? Air. An awkward expression appeared on Lin's face. He couldn't tell her that he was afraid that the Crimson Demonic Emperor would be slain by Xiaolong Nu. So he came to kill her. Bei Lian looked into the distance, and an almost imperceptible smile appeared on her face. She fell silent for a moment before speaking again. There's something strange about the flow of the sea, and there's an unsettling aura in the sea breeze. The enemies coming tonight probably won't be easy to deal with. Just do what you can. I won't be able to spare any attention to protect you in battle. Lin nodded with a hint of surprise in his heart. As expected of a dragon tribe, he couldn't feel the sea breeze at all. It was just that the wind was a little noisy today. The waves on the sea grew larger and larger, and dark clouds obscured the moon and stars in the sky. The atmosphere gradually became oppressive. "They're here." Baelian's expression became grave. On the surface of the sea, 3 black figures grew larger and larger, and an extremely powerful aura swept toward them. Baelian's expression instantly shifted drastically upon sensing these 3 auras. Not just the Crimson Demonic Emperor. There are 3 Emperor-level sea monsters. Could they be from the 7 Demons realm? That doesn't make sense. Why would they join forces? She felt like things were spiraling out of her control for the first time. She was only a newly advanced soul formation intermediate stage cultivator, so she was confident that she could take on 1 Emperor-level sea monster with ease. Who would have thought that there would be 3 of them? A large number of sea monsters surged toward Bolon City like a tidal wave. In the sky, a huge silver falcon flew through the air and circled in the sky. A white flying cocoon over 1,000 feet in length broke through the black clouds and descended upon the world. Divine Wind, Demon Monarch. Myriad Wave, Demon Monarch. Baelian's body swayed slightly, and her face was completely devoid of color as her eyes were filled with shock and bewilderment. Impossible! How could there be 5 Emperor-level sea monsters? This lineup is enough to raise half of the Pearl Kingdom to the ground. How could they only use them to attack Bolon City? She then seemed to have thought of something, and she turned to Enlin in a panicked voice. "Hurry up and run. There's no need for you to participate in this battle. You'll die if you stay here." Enlin blinked in confusion. "What about you?" Baelian crushed a jade talisman in her hand and looked up at the 5 gargantuan creatures in the distance with a determined expression. "I can't leave yet. Once I leave this place, Bolon City's defensive line will immediately collapse, and all of the living beings in the city will be slaughtered by them. I'll use a mystic technique to stall for as long as possible until the Dragon Court reinforcements arrive." Enlin looked deeply into Baelian's eyes, as if he was looking at a new dragon maiden. She was most likely well aware of the success rate of using a mystic technique to stall for time. Otherwise, she wouldn't have told Enlin to leave this place as soon as possible. With this in mind, Enlin smiled in relief. "Let me help you. I can't bear to see so many adorable pearls die. Also, I've said it before, I must obtain the head of the Crimson Demonic Emperor, so don't try to take it from me." "You." Baelian didn't know what to say. When she saw the determination and confidence in Enlin's eyes, she finally heaved a light sigh and nodded as if she had resigned herself to fate. In her heart, she labeled Enlin as a good person. "Then I'll leave the Crimson Demonic Emperor to you. I'll go hold off the other 4. "No, aside from the Crimson Demonic Emperor, I'll take care of 2 more of them. The other 2 are yours." "Are you crazy?" "I'm not crazy. Let me show you a big treasure." Chapter 273. Enlin's storage ring flashed, and 2 puppets that glowed with a silver metallic sheen appeared. Baelian looked at the 2 puppets with a surprised expression. "These are the trump cards you were talking about." Enlin nodded. "These 2 Gundams are no less powerful than Soul Formation Initial Stage. From their auras, there are 3 Soul Formation Initial Stage sea monsters and 2 Soul Formation Intermediate Stage sea monsters. The Divine Wind Demon Emperor and the Myriad Wave Demon Emperor are mid-deity transformation realm great demons. You'll hold them off. Leave the other 3 to us. We'll take care of them as soon as possible and come back to help you." Baelian looked at Enlin with disbelief in her eyes. The sea monster army surged toward them from the distance, and the horn of battle sounded throughout the entire Bolon City. A minotaur with a pair of crimson horns on its head flew through the air atop a wave of crimson blood. A whale that was several hundred feet in length was lifted into the air by a black mist and slowly flew toward the city wall. Its eyes glowed with a purple light that seemed to possess the power to enchant one's soul. A sea monster with a body covered in green coral walked on 2 legs. Its hands were like scythes, and it was able to cover over 100 feet in a single step. Even the earth in its wake was corroded and melted as an aura of death permeated the air. Crimson Demonic Emperor, Overlord Whale, Coral Reaper. Baelian uttered the names of these infamous Emperor-level sea monsters. The Pearl King, who had rushed over upon hearing the battle horn, was so frightened that he collapsed on the city wall. His face was ashen as he muttered, "Why are there so many Emperor-level great demons? Does the heavens want my Bolan city dead?" Not only was the Pearl King dumbstruck, but all of the Pearl soldiers on the city wall were also shocked. Normally, a single Beast Emperor could destroy several large cities. Now, 5 Beast Emperors had come to Bolan City. What were they going to do? Capture 10,000 pearls and use them as sacrifices. Kill the rest. The Crimson Demonic Emperor stood proudly in the sky, with crimson waves swirling around him. His voice reverberated throughout the entire heaven and earth. This was not a declaration of war. This was a declaration of a result. Rumble, the sea monster army moved, and their battle cries reverberated through the heavens. At the same time, the 5 Beast Emperors also sprang into action with cold expressions, as if they were preparing to crush an ant. The giant silver eagle brought with it a white lightning bolt, like a sharp sword that could cut the sky, and crash straight into the city wall. "Don't die." Bei Lian's eyes turned golden as she glanced at Enlin. Then, countless bolts of lightning burst forth from her body as she charged toward the divine wind demon monarch. Like the most dazzling meteors, they collided. Boom! The collision of the 2 completely different types of destructive lightning lit up the night sky, as if it was as bright as day. Then, under the astonished gazes of the other 4 demon thearchs, the divine wind demon arch was pushed back hundreds of meters by Xiao Longnu. "It's the Dragon Court." The Crimson Demonic Emperor immediately reacted. "Don't worry, she's alone. Let's surround her and kill her." The Overlord whale turned its body, its eyes shining with purple light. However, at that moment, a silver Gundam descended from the sky and punched the Overlord whale's body. From afar, it looked like a silver speck of light had landed on the pitch-black body and then smashed it into the huge body, causing it to cave in. The Overlord whale screamed and fell from the sky. The Coral Reaper's expression changed. Just as he was about to rush over to help, another silver figure came toward him. The light sword in his hand was as fast as lightning, drawing a blue moonlight in the air. "There are reinforcements." He dodged to the side and released a thick green fog. This poisonous fog was strong enough to corrode magic artifacts, and it enveloped the silver Gundam. Shrouded in the poisonous mist, the Gundam quickly brandished its lightsaber, forcing the Coral King to retreat. The armor, which was glowing with a metallic luster, was as smooth as a mirror, and the poisonous mist was unable to damage it at all. Damn it, where did these puppets come from? The Crimson Demonic Emperor's heart tightened as he looked around the battlefield. Then he saw a man riding a white dog pouncing towards him, and beside him was a Monkey King shrouded in black flames on the city walls of Bolan City. A group of soldiers began to fight back against the sea monster army. When the soldiers were in despair, and Lin and the others, as well as Xiao Longnu, made a powerful move and stopped the 5 insufferably arrogant demon thearchs. This was undoubtedly a huge boost to the soldiers' morale. "Hold on, everyone. We haven't lost this battle yet." The Pearl King roared as he swung his sword. The city protection spell formation was activated, and countless spell techniques rained down upon the city, blasting a series of craters into the ground as countless sea monsters were torn to shreds by the explosions. However, there were simply too many sea monsters, and the city walls were also trembling violently under their onslaught. It was clear that they wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. In the sky above, Bei Lian, who was battling the Divine Wind Demon Arch and the Myriad Wave Demon Arch, had fallen into a dire situation. Both of them were veteran soul formation intermediate stage cultivators, but she was a newly advanced soul formation intermediate stage cultivator. Even though she had the support of her powerful bloodline, she was still unable to defeat the 2 demon thearchs. Did she have to use that mystic technique? That was a mystic technique that sacrificed the purity of her bloodline to temporarily increase her power. If she used it, she would have no hope of progressing to the return of Void stage in the future. However, if she didn't use that mystic technique now, then Lin and the others would most likely die. Bailien turned toward Lin with concern in her eyes. She was then greeted by the sight of the Crimson Demonic Emperor's head flying through the air. A man with a pair of white wings of wind on his back flew through the air. His white eyes seemed to be able to see through all illusions, as if he were a sword immortal. That's Lin? He really did kill the Crimson Demonic Emperor, but he's only of the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage. How did he do it? Bailien's pupils contracted slightly, and her expression was filled with shock as she stared blankly at Lin. The other 4 demon thearchs were also given a fright when they sensed the Crimson Demonic Emperor's aura dissipating. They were even more shocked, speechless upon discovering that the one who had killed the Crimson Demonic Emperor was a human of the spirit-nurturing stage. Are you kidding me? The Crimson Demonic Emperor was killed by a human of the spirit-nurturing stage? Even with the assistance of that huge dog and the Monkey King, there's no way he could have been defeated so quickly. A chill ran down the divine wind demon thearch's spine. That human cultivator is the key. Revenge. The myriad wave demon thearch charged toward Lin, and over 100 flying mutant beasts flew out from within the gigantic cocoon toward Lin. The divine wind demon thearch spread open its silver wings and summoned bolts of lightning to envelop its body as it tore through the air toward Lin at supersonic speed. Bailien gritted her teeth, and lightning flashed as she positioned herself in front of Lin. Her hands danced through the air like butterflies as she cast a series of incantation seals. 9 blue lightning dragons soared into the sky and formed a coiling dragon formation to keep the 2 demon thearchs at bay. And Lin had just slain the demon thearchs when a ding-dong chimed in his mind. Congratulations, host, mission accomplished. Immediately afterward, he felt a certain shackle within his body being broken. Xiaoqiu, Dabai, protect me. I'm about to make a breakthrough. Lin yelled as he hurriedly flew toward the city wall to meditate. Big brother, and don't mess around. Didn't you just make a breakthrough not long ago? Woof. Dabai flew to Lin's side and stared at him with wide, round eyes. However, the only response he received was a violent surge of vital energy between heaven and earth, as well as a vital energy vortex that covered an area of several thousand feet. Dabai. Xiaoqiu picked his nose. Big brother, and don't try to apply those theories of the cultivation world to Big Brother, and Dabai nodded with a solemn expression. I was wrong. Someone was about to make a breakthrough. The 4 demon thearchs sensed the violent surge of the vital energy of heaven and earth. They turned their eyes toward Lin, and their eyelids twitched involuntarily. It's him again? Was he celebrating by killing their Crimson Demonic Emperor by making a breakthrough? Bailien's lips also twitched slightly. She couldn't understand this human cultivator anymore, and she silently labeled him as a miraculous cultivator. Chapter 274. As long as we kill that human cultivator, the puppets will stop moving. This is the fastest way for us to break out of this situation. The Coral Reaper god spoke in a panicked voice after dodging the Gundam's particle sword. I'll use a mystic technique to trap the puppets. You 2 attack together and kill the human cultivator. The Overlord whale's eyes glowed with a purple light. Its body suddenly expanded at a rapid rate as its aura climbed steadily. A monstrous wave of black mist surged forth in all directions. Overlord's domain, myriad demon lock. The Overlord whale let loose a long roar as the black mist materialized into a myriad of substantial chains that hurtled toward the 2 Gundams. The Gundam unleashed a light sword to shatter the chains, while the other Gundam even unleashed an energy cannon to shatter the chains. However, the black chains were like an inescapable net. They were endless and multiplied endlessly, trapping the 2 Gundams. Boundless sea bind. The myriad wave demon emperor's body squirmed violently as countless threads capable of slicing through steel shot forth from the giant white cocoon toward Bailien like an indestructible white wave. Soon, Bailien was trapped in a ball of threads. Lightning crackled within her body, but she was unable to break through this iron wall. The divine wind demon monarch spread its wings and flew toward the city wall. The two emperor-level sea monsters, the divine wind demon monarch and the coral reaper god, charged toward Lin with monstrous auras. That's right, they only needed a split second to kill this human cultivator and turn the tables. The attacks of the Pearl's soldiers were like mere tickles to them, and the divine wind demon monarch's silver wings tore through the city wall's defensive formation with ease. Die, human cultivator! The coral reaper god unleashed a green poison, which transformed into a massive green skull. It opened its pitch-black mouth and pounced toward Lin, who was in the middle of a breakthrough. Xiao Cho and Dabai charged toward Lin, and black flames and wind blades slashed through the air toward the green skull. Boom! The green skull was pulverized into a cloud of green smoke, as if it had been struck by a heavy blow. Xiao Cho put on his Azure Battle Luo mask and unleashed his aura to block the Coral Reaper god's attack. However, the divine wind demon monarch was already upon them. If the clown and the others hadn't retreated, they would have been smashed to death by a soul formation intermediate stage attack. However, regardless of whether it was Xiao Cho or Dabai, both of them chose to stand in front of Lin with determined expressions. The divine wind demon monarch charged forward with an unstoppable force and was about to crush everything in front of it into minced meat. Boom! A golden bolt of lightning descended from the sky like a sharp sword that tore through the sky. It broke through the domain of the divine wind and smashed heavily on its head. The divine wind demon monarch let out a blood-curdling scream as his body plummeted to the ground as if he had been crushed by Mount Tai. Rumble! The sea demons on the ground were flattened by the divine wind demon monarch's body, creating a huge pit with a radius of over 1,000 feet. Blood flowed from its head, and Bai Lian stood on its head with a cold expression on her face. Bai Lian's aura was extremely powerful, and crimson lines flickered like pulses all over her body. Golden lightning enshrouded her entire body, exuding a terrifying lightning power. Who would have thought that I would have to use this mystic technique after all? A cold voice, tinged with melancholy, sounded. A forlorn smile appeared on Xiao Longnu's face. She didn't think that she would have to use her mystic technique for the sake of a measly cultivator. Myriad Chong, what the hell are you doing? The divine wind demon monarch was both shocked and enraged. It didn't think that Bai Lian would suddenly appear just as it was about to succeed. A hole had already been blasted into the Myriad Chong demon monarch's white spherical cage, and white smoke was rising from it. White lightning began to erupt from the divine wind demon monarch's body as it charged toward Xiao Longnu. Xiao Longnu was enshrouded within the golden lightning, and the white lightning was repelled upon striking the golden lightning, as if it had encountered a higher level of lightning. At the same time, Xiao Longnu's fists whistled mercilessly toward the divine wind demon monarch. Each and every punch was like a bolt of divine lightning, causing the earth to tremor violently. The divine wind demon monarch's anguished wails rang out incessantly. Right at this moment, Lin opened his tightly shut eyes, and the inky black, evil-slaying sword in his hand began to tremble lightly. The Coral Reaper, who was being held back by the clown, saw Lin stand up and spread open his white wings. In the blink of an eye, Lin appeared behind it, and silk-like streams of wind revolved around his black longsword. The Coral Reaper's eyes widened, and it felt a chill run down its neck. And then there was no more, and then its black head slowly slid off, and blood gushed forth. Lin could feel the energy coursing through his body. When he was only of the spirit-nurturing initial stage, he was already on the brink of exhaustion after using the wind sword once. Now that he was of the spirit-nurturing final stage, his sea of vital energy had expanded by several times, and the Beast Core's vital energy absorption was also extremely efficient. He could probably use a powerful technique like the Wind Sword 5 or 6 times. The Myriad Chong demon monarch's white body had already disappeared into the black clouds. And Lin saw Bai Lian, who was surrounded by golden lightning, and beneath her feet was the divine wind demon monarch, who had been pummeled to death. Bailien tilted her head and smiled at Enlin. Crimson lines shimmered on her snowy skin. Are you all right? Enlin's heart trembled, and he shook his head. I'm fine. Hurry up and withdraw your mystic technique. He spread open his white wings of wind and soared into the sky, flying toward the overlord whale that had trapped his two Gundams. Enlin's heart was filled with rage and remorse. He had underestimated the abilities of these Emperor-level sea monsters. Who would have thought that he would almost die during his breakthrough? Not only did he almost get Dabai and Clown Dabai killed, but Bailien had also used a mystic technique on him. He had seen this mystic technique in Shun Yin's recording. It was a mystic technique that sacrificed the purity of one's bloodline. Once used, one's bloodline would become mottled, making it extremely difficult for one's cultivation base to progress, and Lin charged toward the Overlord whale. The Overlord whale had already escaped to the shore, and tens of thousands of black chains pounced toward Lin like snakes upon seeing him. Third technique, 100 sword technique. The evil-slaying sword flew into the air. Vital energy surged, and 99 white, celestial swords suddenly appeared in the air. As soon as the celestial swords appeared, there seemed to be countless streaks of sword intent sweeping through the sky, causing the space around them to tremble. A frosty river swept through heaven and earth. Each of the white celestial swords was extremely condensed and imbued with extremely powerful energy. Go! And Lin pointed a finger, and the 99 celestial swords whistled toward the Overlord whale. The Overlord whale sensed an extremely powerful threat of death, and the black chains changed the trajectory of its attack toward Lin, forming layers of defensive barriers in front of it. Rumble. The white celestial swords were imbued with the power to slice through heaven and earth, shattering the layers of black chains. The ocean behind the Overlord whale was also sliced in half by the sword intent. Unstoppable. Right before the Overlord whale's astonished eyes, the 99 celestial swords completely shattered the black chain's defensive barrier, transforming into white sword projections that pierced through its massive body. Blood gushed forth. Howl! The Overlord whale howled in anguish. The final sword, the evil-slaying sword, was as black as ink. It left a deathly black trail in its wake before puncturing the Overlord whale's head like a comet crashing into the moon. The heaven-piercing sword intent sliced through the ocean behind the Overlord whale for over 6,000 feet. Boom! The Demon Emperor Overlord whale's life force was severed, and it plummeted into the ocean. The evil-slaying sword flew back to Lin's side after drinking the blood of the 3 Demon Emperors. Now that's more like my master. A cold, indifferent voice sounded in Lin's mind. A smile appeared on Lin's face. This seemed to be the first time the evil-slaying sword had spoken to him. However, he didn't have the time to tease little Sierra right now. The 100 sword strikes were extremely taxing on his vital energy, and he was already showing signs of exhaustion. He hurriedly swallowed a spirit blood pill before making his way toward Bailien. Of the 5 Emperor-level sea monsters, 4 had died, and 1 had fled. All of the sea monsters were dumbstruck. Under the relentless retaliation of Dabai the Clown and the Pearl Army, the sea monster army soon began to flee, and the battle gradually drew to a conclusion. Bailien stood atop the Divine Wind Demon Monarch's head and looked at the man making his way toward her with a complex expression. She didn't think that a spirit-nurturing stage cultivator would be able to slay Emperor-level sea monsters, and she certainly didn't think that a spirit-nurturing stage cultivator would possess such astonishing swordsmanship. As a prodigy of the Dragon Court, she silently labeled Lin as a prodigy. Lin stowed the 2 Gundams back into his storage ring before making his way toward Bailien with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry. Bailien faltered slightly before a smile appeared on her face. You should apologize. You were too reckless, and you even needed me to save you. Lin nodded and refrained from saying, I was a burden to you in order to use your mystic technique. Perhaps Bailien didn't want others to know that her bloodline was already tainted. This was her pride. If she didn't say anything, Lin would just pretend that he didn't know. In reality, and Lin had learned from Shun Yin's projection that there was an ancient method that could refine one's bloodline. Shun Yin had once sacrificed her bloodline when the Six Paths demon and god invaded the Dragon Court, and she then tried to find a way to refine and activate her bloodline. However, this method was quite difficult to refine and activate, so Lin decided to tell Bei Lian only when he was close to success. Let's go, Dragon Princess. All right. Chapter 275. Within the seven demon realms, within an area enshrouded in white mist, there was an island that glowed with a purple light. The huge white chrysalis passed through the mist and slowly landed on the island. Myriad waved, Demon Emperor, why are you the only one back? Where are the other emperors? A white demonic bear, exuding a chilling aura, asked. An opening appeared on the gigantic white chrysalis, and a huge white butterfly flew out from it. It looked at the bear and flaming dragon before it. Dead, they're all dead. All four of them are dead? The flaming dragon was shocked. Did you encounter the Dragon Court Divine Position team? The butterfly shook its head. No, we encountered a powerful horned dragon. If it was just her, we wouldn't have failed. Most importantly, we encountered a human cultivator. The butterfly spoke with lingering fear in its heart as it recounted all of the inconceivable things about that human cultivator. He possessed a metal puppet comparable to a soul formation stage cultivator. His sword techniques were superb. He was able to slay the Crimson Demonic Emperor at the spirit nurturing intermediate stage, and he was able to kill the Overlord Whale with a single strike. The white bear and flaming dragon both fell silent upon hearing this. How could there be a human cultivator like this? After a moment of silence, the white bear spoke with a grave expression. In that case, the 10-spirit blood sacrifice formation is still missing one tribe, the Pearl tribe. On the ground, there was a formation composed of blood that glowed with a peculiar light. This formation encompassed the entire island, and the blood was like the most complex network that flowed slowly. The blood would not dry up, and it flowed endlessly on the purple land. The butterfly heaved a forlorn sigh. The Crimson Demonic Emperor wanted to bring us to the final step of the 10-spirit blood sacrifice formation. Who would have thought that we would encounter something like this? Could this be fate? This was just an accident. There are still 15 days until the Holy One is resurrected. We still have a chance. The flaming dragon spoke in a solemn voice. This time, I'll take the containment bead with me. I'll find a city in the Pearl Kingdom and suck away 10,000 Pearl Tribe living beings. I don't believe we'll be so unlucky again. The butterfly and the white bear heaved a sigh of relief. The flaming dragon was the fastest among the 7 emperors. It was a piece of cake for him to use the containment bead to abduct 10,000 Pearl Tribe living beings. Within Bolan City, an earth-shattering battle that would go down in the annals of the Pearl Kingdom had just concluded. Bei Lian had returned to the Pearl Kingdom and had crushed her jade talisman to ask for reinforcements from the Divine Guardian Squad. Seeing that the battle was over, she sent a message to the Divine Guardian Squad and requested them to continue searching for the myriad wave Demon Emperor in the 7 devilish regions. The moon set and the sun rose. In less than a day, the news of the 4 demonic emperors being beheaded outside Bolan City had spread throughout the entire Pearl Kingdom. Then, in the Pearl Kingdom, Lin had accidentally become the hero of the Pearl Kingdom again. He and Xiao Longnu were called the Pearl Twins by the group of pearls. Lin felt like this title wasn't bad. It was much better than titles like Poison Lord and Backdoor Entrant, and it was second only to Lin's title of Sword Immortal. Within the Pearl King's garden, Lin once again saw Bei Lian, who was squatting beside the lake and playing with the little fish. "Hello, Dragon Star." Lin greeted her with a smile. Bei Lian raised her head to look at the man walking toward her with a smile on his face. Then, she lowered her eyes and continued to play with the goldfish by the lake with her tree branch. However, her lips were slightly parted as she blew a puff of air toward the goldfish in the lake, creating a series of ripples. However, not only were the goldfish not scared away, they attracted even more fish to her. "Looks like you're quite popular. Even a fish like you so much." Lin walked over to her with a hint of surprise. Bei Lian ignored him and continued to play with the water in the lake. And Lin also blew a puff of air at the fish in the lake, and a few of them were blown away. Huh, why do they dislike me? Do I have bad breath? But I just brush my teeth. A faint smile appeared on Bailian's face. Fish have a natural affinity with the dragon tribe, so of course they're different. All right, why did you call me Dragon Star? It's rumored that we're the Pearl Twins of the Pearl Kingdom, so of course I'll call you the Pearl Twins. And Lin wore a smug expression, as if he were about to make a name for himself. Bailian nodded. The Pearl tribe is a very kind-hearted tribe. Our battle last night was worth it to be remembered by them. I heard that the king also bestowed a bunch of treasures to us. They'll probably be here in 2 days. And Lin turned to look at the woman beside him. The woman's expression was indifferent, and it was impossible to read her emotions. And Lin continued, You also saved my life last night. I'll give you a big present next time. Bailian shook her head lightly. There's no need for that. You and I were comrades at the time. So isn't it normal for us to help each other in battle? And Lin seemed to have anticipated this outcome and didn't insist. He pulled out a talisman from his pocket with a smile. Then leave me a voice transmission talisman. Bailian was a little surprised. A ripple flashed through her eyes, and she couldn't help but ask why. Let's meet again in the future. All right, Bailian had never exchanged voice transmission talismans with another man before. She hesitated for a moment, but she still inscribed her own voice transmission talisman on Lin's voice transmission talisman. And Lin heaved a sigh of relief after successfully exchanging phone numbers and prepared to proceed with his next plan. After returning to his room, he wrote down the items he needed to collect. 1,000-year moon's sinking wood, ancient purple vine, true blood of the winged dragon, dark ice crystal, desolate firebone, divine white herb. And Lin, Dabai, and Xiao Cho looked at the items on the list and recalled their locations. Dabai was a little distressed. We've seen Xunyin's experience, but it's not a complete picture. Purifying and activating one's bloodline is extremely important to Xunin, so the picture is relatively complete. However, many things have probably been buried after so many years. And Lin took a deep breath. We already know the coordinates anyway, so we have to try. If we can't find them, then we'll buy them. If there's really no other way, then we'll give this list to Bailian and ask her to help us search for them. Bailian had sacrificed herself to save him, and Lin wanted to make up for it through his own efforts rather than relying on her power. Many of the items on the list were extremely valuable. Even if they were sold in the auction house or the treasure pavilion, they would definitely be sold for astronomical prices. And Lin's little sunny egg would probably be unable to bear it. The next day, the king's rewards arrived. 1,000,000 spirit stones, a pile of exotic plants, and earthly treasures, as well as many precious stones and jewels. And Lin sold everything that he could to the Pearl King. In the end, he sold the pile of items for 1,000,000 spirit stones, which was quite a substantial sum. He did some calculations and found that there were 470 spirit stones in his storage ring, which was quite a sizable sum. Bailian recuperated for a while before bidding farewell to Lin. I'm not going to travel for now. I'm going back to the Dragon Court. Sure, I'll come to the Dragon Court to play with you in a while. And Lin knew why she wasn't going to travel, and he bade farewell to her with a smile. Bailian shook her head, and a mesmerizing smile appeared on her face. You'd better not come to the Dragon Court. It's embarrassing. And Lin, the two of them bade farewell. Thus, Lin began his journey of treasure hunting. Chapter 276. Lin, Dabai, and Xiao Cho walked out of the city gate surrounded by a large group of pearls. The beauty of Bolan City, Chi-Chi, was also among the group. She waved goodbye to them in a loud voice. Senior Lin, if you ever come to the Pearl Kingdom again, I'll be your tour guide for free. A knowing smile appeared on Lin's face, and he waved a hand before flying toward the ocean on Dabai's back, disappearing from everyone's line of sight. Their first stop was near Green Island in the EC. The 1,000-year moon sinking wood was there. There's a moon sinking tree at the bottom of the sea 14 kilometers to the east of Green Island. At the time, Xunin couldn't bear to kill it with a single sword strike, so she only sliced off one of its branches. I don't know if it's still there now. And Lin spoke in a calm voice as he held onto the nautical chart. It's a 1,000-year moon-sinking tree, but it was already 2,000 to 3,000 years old at the time. It's probably a 10,000-year tree demon now. If it ran away or was taken away by someone else, then we'd have wasted our time. Woof. Dabai was a little uneasy. There's another possibility. It's already died of old age, and even its body is rotted away. Xiao Chou added. And Lin, East Sea's Green Island. This island was rich in vital energy and flourished with life. There were many beautiful trees and beautiful forests. From a distance, it looked like a green gem embedded in the sea, which was why it was called Green Island. And Lin followed the map and soon saw the rumored island. However, no one was in the mood to tour Green Island. Instead, they headed east 14 kilometers and dove into the sea. Xiao Chou, turn on the lights. Clang. Xiao Chou unleashed his golden eye ability, Super Searchlight. A golden pillar of light tore through the darkness like a sharp sword and pierced toward the dark bottom of the sea. Xiao Chou unleashed his half-step soul formation stage aura, and no deep-sea mutant beasts dared to approach them. After diving for over 2,000 meters, they finally reached the bottom. I remember there was a huge azure rock next to the moon's sinking tree, and Lin said, I found the boulder, but the tree is gone. The clown looked in a certain direction and saw a familiar boulder. It was still standing there after tens of thousands of years, but the greenish-yellow moon's sinking tree beside it had disappeared. And Lin's heart was empty. He hurriedly ran to the side of the boulder and examined it thoroughly. He even used an immortal technique to dig 3 feet into the ground, but the tree seemed to have disappeared into thin air. That's impossible. If the sunken moon wood is a rare material, even if it's dead, the wood wouldn't rot so easily. How can there be no trace of it at all? Did it become a spirit and run away? Was it taken away by some foreign creature? And Lin had never imagined that the first material he had found would end up like this. He found it hard to accept. On Green Island, the wind was howling, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. On the white stone altar, a group of tree demons and spirit beasts crouched on the ground, shivering. I, the ancient Moon Emperor, have killed the Azure Emperor here today. Do you have any objections? A greenish-yellow trance stood proudly in the center of the stone altar with a golden longsword in its hand, its might overwhelming. Beside it, another greenish-yellow treant had been cut into 2, and its vitality had already been severed. The tree demons and spirit beasts hurriedly shook their heads, unable to say a word of objection. The Azure Emperor was the most powerful being on Green Island. Even it had died in the hands of the ancient Moon Emperor. How could they dare to resist? Seeing all the powerful beings on Green Island kneeling before it, the ancient Moon Emperor laughed loudly. The aura of a king was released unscrupulously, and it felt extremely carefree and heroic. I, the ancient Moon Emperor, comprehended Tao for 3,000 years at the bottom of the sea, but my perfect body was destroyed by a slut's sword, and my path to Tao was severed. But my heart was not broken, and the heavenly Tao took pity on me. After 9,000 years, I condensed a perfect body again, reforged my path to Tao, and even comprehended Tao perfectly. Now, I'm the Emperor of Green Island. Who has any objections? Its voice was like the waves of the sea, surging with rage and full of power, causing the trees in a radius of several hundred feet to tremble. The ancient Moon Emperor was extremely happy. This was because today was the day it descended upon Green Island. This was the most glorious moment in its 10,000 years of existence. Look, not a single living being on Green Island dared to oppose it. I don't accept this. A voice suddenly traveled down from the sky. This voice was like a clap of thunder, shattering the silent atmosphere. All the trance and spirit beasts trembled, and they raised their heads to look at the sky. They wanted to see who was so reckless as to dare to oppose the terrifyingly powerful ancient Moon Emperor. The ancient Moon Emperor's expression also changed, and it raised its head to look at the sky. It didn't think that someone would disturb it when it was about to ascend to the throne. At this moment, it had already sentenced the intruder to death in its mind. Then, all the living beings on Green Island saw an unfamiliar face. It was a monkey. It held a silver staff in its hand, and its entire body was enveloped in black flames. The black crystal armor on its body made it look majestic, but its face was a bit too ugly. The ancient Moon Emperor sensed that the monkey was only of the half-step soul formation stage, and the monkey's followers, the white dog and the human cultivator, were also only of the spirit-nurturing stage. It instantly laughed coldly. "And who are you? Why don't you accept this?" The other living beings on Green Island were all disappointed when they discovered that the Monkey King, who had spoken up to oppose them, hadn't even reached the soul formation stage. They felt that this monkey had really gone crazy. One had to know that the Azure Emperor of Green Island was a mighty being of the soul formation initial stage. Even so, it had been sliced in half by the ancient Moon Emperor's sword. A monkey that hadn't even reached the soul formation stage was shouting in front of the ancient Moon Emperor. If this wasn't seeking death, then what was? Ahem, I'm the general, the golden-eyed Monkey King. As for why I don't accept this, I just don't accept this. The Monkey King replied boldly and forcefully. That's right, the intruders were precisely the clown, Dubai, and Enlin. Hearing the clown's words, all the living beings on Green Island were instantly shocked. The ancient Moon Emperor was also stunned. This was the first time it had seen a monkey that was so arrogant despite being weak. At this moment, Dubai was secretly transmitting his voice to Enlin excitedly. Look, big brother, and apart from having many faces and limbs, this moon-sinking tree is almost exactly the same as the one in the image. It's become a spirit. I was just saying that it might have gone to some island and become a king. I didn't expect such a coincidence. And Lin also had a gratified expression on his face. Mountains are heavy and rivers are heavy, but there's still a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. If it hadn't caused such a huge commotion, we might not have come here. This is fate. Seeing the clown's arrogant appearance, the ancient Moon Emperor knew that it had to kill the chicken to warn the monkey again. Kill the monkey to warn the other living beings. Since you don't accept this, then you can go and die. The ancient Moon Emperor wasn't a tree that liked to talk nonsense. A full moon appeared behind it, and its white moonlight covered a radius of 30 meters. It's appeared. The ancient Moon Emperor's moonlight protection domain. This is an absolute defense. The Green Emperor fought it to the death, but he couldn't even break through its domain and was killed. Seeing this scene, the trance below immediately exclaimed in shock. The ancient Moon Emperor killing the Green Emperor without being injured was too shocking to the powerful beings on Green Island. The extremely terrifying defense made the ancient Moon Emperor invincible, and it also made them completely give up on the idea of resisting. The ancient Moon Emperor smiled confidently. Ever since it was struck by that woman's sword, it swore to protect itself well. From then on, it would become a tree that would never be injured. It was because of this determination that it finally comprehended the moonlight protection domain. From now on, only it could bully others, and no one could bully it. Die, ugly monkey! The ancient Moon Emperor took a step forward, and with a towering aura, it soared into the sky. Its golden long sword was aimed at the clown, and it mercilessly slashed down. Chapter 277. The clown put on the Azure Battle Arhut mask, and his aura suddenly increased. The ancient Moon Emperor also smashed down with his staff. Boom! The long sword and the silver staff collided, forming a circular vacuum. Then, a loud explosion occurred. The wind howled, and heaven and earth shook. The clown was forced back several meters, and the ancient Moon Emperor was also forced back a few steps. The ancient Moon Emperor was shocked. It didn't expect the monkey's strength to be on par with its own. Again, it shouted and continued to pounce toward the clown. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky, the ancient Moon Emperor and the clown fought. Vital energy surged, and the sound of their battle echoed for 3 kilometers. The powerful beings of Green Island looked at the battle in the sky in shock. They didn't expect the monkey, who hadn't even reached the soul formation stage, to be able to fight against the ancient Moon Emperor. Boom! The clown became more and more courageous. With another powerful staff strike, the ancient Moon Emperor was forced back several dozen meters. This time, the expressions of the beings of Green Island changed again. Heavens, the handsome Monkey King is actually suppressing the ancient Moon Emperor. Is the master of Green Island going to change hands again? It's impossible. An old tree man shook his head. The Monkey King's attack can't break through the ancient Moon Emperor's moonlight protection domain. Also, the Monkey King is probably using some kind of method to increase his strength. This method can't last long. Once the effect disappears, the Monkey King will die. In reality, just as the tree man said, the effect of the clown's Azure Battle Arhut mask was about to disappear. Still a little bit more, and Lin took out the evil-slaying sword from his storage ring. The ancient Moon Emperor and the clown were in the middle of a fierce battle. No one would pay attention to the actions of the small cultivator. However, at this moment, the sky suddenly became pitch black. Second strike, Shadow Tiger. Everything became silent. The ancient Moon Emperor suddenly trembled, and an unprecedented sense of danger enveloped its body. It immediately activated the moonlight protection domain, and the full moon released endless white light. However, the darkness was like the sharpest claws, tearing apart the white light and eroding the full moon. No, the ancient Moon Emperor begged in horror. At this moment, it recalled the cruelty of the dragon tribe female's sword and felt the fear of being trampled on. "Lend me your arm," and Lin's cold voice sounded from within the absolute darkness and silence. And then Lin emerged from the shadows before slashing his evil-slaying sword down with a soundless divine might. The black sword shadow that stretched for more than 1,000 feet instantly descended, and the ancient Moon Emperor screamed in agony in midair. The light reappeared, and the darkness disappeared as quickly as it came. When the creatures of the Green Island saw the situation in the sky again, a huge white dog had already fled into the distance with a Monkey King with a thick greenish-yellow arm in its mouth. "Oomph, what bullsh asterisk T Emperor of Green Island. He can't even withstand a single strike from me. And Lin, I'll spare your life. Reflect on your actions." The handsome man who had just unleashed his sword threw down a few words before turning to the creatures of Green Island with a tall and imposing back. Then, he flew away on the strange black brick, and no one dared to stop him. They were all astonished. They didn't understand how this spirit-nurturing stage cultivator could be so powerful. However, they were very clear about one thing, and that was that the sword immortal named Lin had defeated the ancient Moon Emperor at the summit of Green Island with a single sword strike. His deeds would definitely spread across the entire Green Island and even the East Sea. Of course, the prerequisite was that the ancient Moon Emperor didn't mind. The ancient Moon Emperor had survived a great calamity, and it had long since lost its proud aura. Instead, its entire body trembled slightly as it landed on the stone altar. It knew that if it wasn't for Lin holding back, it wouldn't have been as simple as losing an arm. Instead, its entire body would have been sliced in half. That man with terrifying sword techniques had left. Why did he leave after delivering a single sword strike? The ancient Moon Emperor didn't understand. However, when it thought about the huge dog that had its arm in its mouth, it seemed to understand something. Didn't that dragon tribe female also leave after slicing off a part of its arm? The familiar scene made it extremely frightened, and it couldn't help but shiver. Those who dared to provoke me have all been chased away by me, now that I'm the Emperor of Green Island. Who dares defy me? The ancient Moon Emperor's voice was like a torrent of waves, and it was full of might as it spoke again. The beings of Green Island felt as if their intelligence had been insulted, but they still didn't dare to make a sound. Although the ancient Moon Emperor had lost an arm, there was still no one here who could defeat it. Since no one objects, then I'm the Emperor of Green Island today. The ancient Moon Emperor made the final decision and ascended to the throne of Green Island. Congratulations, new Emperor. The ancient Moon Emperor's magic power is boundless, and your longevity is boundless. The tree people and spirit beasts of Green Island spoke in unison, saying the same old lines. Somewhere on Green Island, a man walked over on the waves. TSK, TSK, TSK. The wood energy on this island is so rich. It's a good place to cultivate. Huh, there seems to be a gathering over there. How can I, spring male, miss such a good thing? Since they're all gathered together, I'll take this opportunity to become an island owner and build a prosperous, democratic, and civilized island nation. He, in the sky, and Lin put the ancient Moon Emperor's arm into his storage ring. He had used his divine inspection technique to appraise this piece of 10,000-year moon sinking wood, and the quality of the material used was several times higher than what he had expected. He was a little regretful. How good would it have been if he had directly killed the ancient Moon Emperor back then? They could have sold the extra materials. They were worth a lot of money. The next materials were the ancient purple vine and the true blood of the winged dragon. These could be found in the ancient battlefield of the East Sea. He had seen that ancient battlefield in Shun Yin's images. This was where the failed Tao integration product of the Purple Star Realm, the ghostly god of six paths, led an army of 100,000 ghostly soldiers in battle against the dragon court of the Eastern Seas. Countless powerful beings perished in that earth-shattering battle, including 5 winged dragons of the Return to Void stage and the prodigy of the Vermilion Bird sect, Dongfang Ming. Presently, that battlefield had already transformed into a hopeless place of death. Spatial turbulence flowed through it, and ghosts thrived there. Return to Void stage mighty figures wouldn't set foot there. Otherwise, they would cause the fragile heaven and earth there to crumble. Only some soul formation stage and spirit nurturing stage cultivators would venture there in search of opportunities. Shen Yin had found the ancient purple vine and the true blood of the winged dragon in a certain space on that battlefield. I hope those cultivators who entered later on didn't discover that independent space, and Lin said uneasily. He wasn't worried that the ancient purple vine would wither and the true blood of the winged dragon would dry up. The ancient purple vine could survive by using the deathly aura of the battlefield as nourishment. Furthermore, the true blood of the winged dragon was immortal and existed within the bones of the winged dragons. What if the ancient purple vine turns into a spirit and runs away? Dabai suddenly voiced his concern. And Lin, initially, he didn't believe that one could turn into a spirit after living for a long time. However, the moon-sinking tree's spirit made him speechless. And Lin didn't speak to Dabai, choosing to remain silent. After a long while, everyone saw a barren island, and thus they began to dive again. At the bottom of the deep sea, a white ripple-like barrier enveloped a radius of over 500 kilometers. This was once the most prosperous place in the Dragon Court, and it once possessed the most powerful defensive spell formation. However, a sudden war had destroyed everything. Now, it had already become a land of death, isolated from the rest of the world. I see it. That's the entrance. Xiao Chou followed his memory and walked around the barrier. The searchlight finally caught sight of a white gate. Everyone was overjoyed and arrived before the white gate. The inside of the gate shimmered with light, giving off a sense of mystery and danger. And Lin's eyes turned snow white as he peered into the gate. The passageway to the barrier is still clear, and it's also the day the barrier stabilizes. The heavens are truly on our side. Ancient battlefield, let's go. Chapter 278. This was a barren land where not even a blade of grass grew. At the top of the sky was a barrier that separated the sky from the water. It glowed like dusk. Gusts of wind capable of annihilating all living things blew out from the shattered space. An aura of death and evil rose from the ground from time to time. There were also vengeful spirits and ancient evil spirits that could never enter the cycle of reincarnation roaming this land. This was the Dragon Court's ancient battlefield, an abandoned piece of land. Under the broken white stone pillar, 5 well-dressed men stood together with worried expressions. Prince Chi Wu, are we really not going to save Princess Inu? A middle-aged man asked nervously. The red-haired man, standing in the middle of the 5, looked uncertain. Finally, he flicked his sleeves. Do you think I don't want to save 13th sister? But she mistakenly entered the myriad ghost realm. Can anyone come out after entering that place? We'd better think of a way to escape from here. Then report this to father. The man named Chi Wu was evidently the person with the highest status here. After he made his decision, the others didn't say anything. However, there was a look of pity on their faces. Report this to the Dragon King? By the time they escaped and sent reinforcements over, 13th Princess would probably have already become a member of the myriad ghost realm. Chi Wu held a black ancient bead in his hand. This was an ancient artifact that he had collected while the barrier was stable. It wasn't like he had returned empty-handed. Come, let's go back. Chun Yuan, Huang Yuza, you two go lure away the bone ghost horde ahead. Hearing Chi Wu's instructions, Chun Yuan and Huang Yuza nodded with a smile, cursing 10,000 times in their hearts. The bone ghost horde was extremely terrifying, and there were even 2 soul formation stage black mist bone dragons among them. Only Prince Chi Wu would use spirit-nurturing final stage cloud dragons like them as bait. Chun Yuan and Huang Yuza stood up and summoned their flying swords. They looked at each other and saw the bitterness and helplessness in each other's eyes. Using the sacrificial mystic technique, even if they didn't die, they would probably be half dead. Go, heroes of the Dragon Court. Chi Wu saluted elegantly. Chun Yuan and Huang Yuza's lips twitched. They wanted to say that word again, but they held back in the end. This was probably the fate of the royal guards. For the safety of the royal family, they wouldn't hesitate even if they had to sacrifice their lives. The 2 of them soared into the air and flew forward. The dense horde of bone ghosts in front of them immediately became restless when they smelled the scent of living beings. Woo woo woo. Wails and howls filled the entire area. Countless bone ghosts started pouncing towards Chun Yuan and Huang Yuza. Many of them were even floating in the air. Their speed was even faster than Chun Yuan and Huang Yuza's. Boom! 2 gigantic bone dragons with deep crimson pupils also began to move. With a monstrous aura, they pounced towards the 2 people in the sky. Chun Yuan and Huang Yuza immediately used their secret arts to burn their potential and continue to act as bait. We should also move out. Chi Wu saw that the group of bone ghosts had been lured away by Chun Yuan and Huang Yuza and began to fly into the sky on his sword. The other 2 nodded and followed behind Chi Wu on their swords, drawing 2 rainbow lights in the sky. Enlin, Dabai, and Xiao Cho passed through the enchantment barrier passageway. Their original plan was to let the 2 Gundams lead the way. However, as soon as the 2 Gundams stepped into the passageway, the enchantment barrier passageway began to shrink, as if it had been stimulated by something. This situation gave them a huge fright, and they immediately flew through the long enchantment barrier passageway with all their might. Finally, in the nick of time, they successfully entered the enchantment barrier. Phew, that was close. The enchantment barrier is still shrinking. We almost couldn't get in. And Lin looked at the white passageway that had shrunk into a slit with lingering fear. Could it be that the Dragon Tribe enchantment barrier is so resistant to Gundams 1 and 2 because they're from the Purple Star? Dabai speculated, and Lin nodded. He felt that this was a reasonable deduction. Xiao Cho was a little concerned. The enchantment barrier passageway is closed. How are we going to get out? There's no rush. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Let's collect the things we need first. And Lin was not a pessimistic person, and his fighting spirit was immediately ignited. At this moment, 3 powerful auras suddenly closed in on them. Be careful. Enemies are coming, and their auras don't seem to be weak. Xiao Cho looked ahead with a grave expression. And Lin and Dabai's bodies also tensed up. They didn't think that enemies would pounce on them as soon as they entered the enchantment barrier. Their aggro was drawn way too quickly. People from the Dragon Court? And Lin was a little confused when he saw that the person at the front was a handsome man. This man's crimson hair fluttered in the wind, and he had a pair of dragon horns on his head. The crimson-haired man was also slightly taken aback by the sight of Enlin and the others. However, as expected of a prince of the Dragon Court, he immediately came to his senses and joined his hands in a polite salute. Fellow cultivators, I'm very happy to meet you here. I wish you a pleasant treasure hunt. I'll be taking my leave now. Don't celebrate too early. And Lin turned his gaze elsewhere, as if he was a little embarrassed. Huh? The crimson-haired man was a little dumbstruck by Lin's reply. What the hell was that? Telling me not to celebrate too early? Was that a provocation? But I didn't do anything to him. Prince Chi Wu, the gate to the enchantment barrier has shrunk into a slit. A person beside the crimson-haired man yelled in panic as he looked at the enchantment barrier behind Lin. Chi Wu's pupils contracted as he looked behind Lin, and his heart skipped a beat. He finally understood the meaning behind Lin's words. Holy F***CK. What was there to be happy about? The gate was gone. You, fellow cultivator, why has the gate shrunk? Chi Wu's composure was quite good. He held back a mouthful of blood and looked at Lin and the others with a calm expression as he spoke in a calm voice. I don't know either, Lin said with an innocent expression. There was a worried expression on his face. It shrunk as soon as I came in, and I'm still worried about how to get back. Chi Wu's lips twitched. **T. Was he that unlucky? The gate shrunk as soon as he came in? This group of cultivators was very unfamiliar. Logically speaking, they shouldn't be here to screw him over. Even if they want to screw him over, how could their timing be so precise? Come to think of it, was he really that unlucky this time? Rumble. There was a huge commotion in the distance, as if an army was approaching. Prince, it's Bone Ghosts, they're coming. One of the male cultivators said with a trembling voice, his face pale. Bone Ghosts? And Lin looked into the distance and saw a group of twisted beings with a tinge of white and black surging toward them. Most of their bodies were made up of bones and a black mist that seemed to have materialized over their bodies. There were two extremely huge bone dragons among them, and they were chewing something in their mouths. Their crimson eyes exuded a dangerous and violent aura. Chi Wu pulled out his flaming longsword, and the powerful aura of the soul formation initial stage erupted from his body. He appeared extremely majestic and intimidating. Fellow cultivator, these bone ghosts are wreaking havoc in the mystic realm. Now that the exit has been sealed, we won't be able to get out and will be constantly harassed by them. Let's join forces and defeat them. Chi Wu said in a loud voice. All right, and Lin nodded. Cross dark flaming slash. Chi Wu's long sword slashed out two flaming sword slashes, which swept toward the black mist bone dragon at the very front. Mountain quaking lightning fist. Azure wolf wind claw. Black flame fist. And Lin and the others all unleashed their techniques at the same time. The two people beside Chi Wu also pounced toward the black mist bone dragon. Glacial tornado. White cloud lightning sword. Boom, boom, boom. Countless extremely powerful immortal spells crashed toward the bone dragons and bone ghosts, instantly killing dozens of bone ghosts. Even the two soul formation stage bone dragons were forced into retreat. Charge! The two men beside Chi Wu clashed with the bone dragons. A few seconds later, the two men were sent flying with severe injuries. A strange feeling welled up in their hearts. Why was it so quiet behind them? They looked behind them to find that their boss, Chi Wu, had already flown 1.5 kilometers away. The man riding on the dog and the monkey had also turned into black dots in the distance as they fled in another direction. The two men seemed to have realized something, and a boundless chill welled up in their hearts. No! Following this cry of despair, they were greeted by the bloody maw of the black mist bone dragon. Chapter 279. And Lin looked behind him. The bone ghost horde shouldn't be able to catch up to them anymore. He heaved a sigh of relief. Phew! Only a crazy person would fight bone ghosts head-on with them. I just didn't expect that prince called Chi Wu to betray his teammates even faster than us. He's from a dragon tribe, and he's called a prince. Could he be a prince from the dragon court? Woof. Dabai spoke slowly as he rode the wind. And Lin nodded. He should be a prince from the dragon court. The Dragon King is so fertile that he has enough children to form 2 football teams. It's not surprising that he's a prince. It's none of our business anyway. Let's hurry and find out where that space is. They flew along the way, and whenever they encountered spatial rifts, they would avoid being injured by the chaotic gales. They also encountered some bone ghosts along the way, but they were all scattered, and Lin killed them easily. I remember that the entrance to this space is in the northwestern region of the ruins, beside a huge skull, and Lin said slowly as he recalled the scene in his memory. Big brother, and should we go on a treasure hunting adventure here? Dabai's eyes lit up, and he was itching to give it a try. And Lin stroked his chin and finally nodded. That can be done, but let's hit the ancient purple vine and the true blood of the winged dragon first. Their defeat at the Winter Dragon Tomb had hurt them for a long time, so it was time to fight for another opportunity. After flying for a while, the glow of the enchantment barrier dimmed for some reason. Rumble, muffled thunder sounded in the distance, like the angry roar of a wild beast. There's a lot of energy up ahead. Everyone be careful, and Lin warned as he drew his evil slaying sword. Sure enough, a black skull-shaped evil spirit pounced toward them not long after. However, it didn't even get within 30 feet of Lin before it was sliced in half by his sword projection and disappeared into thin air. But this was only the beginning. Soon, 5 or 6 evil spirits pounced toward them with bared fangs and claws. Wind blades and black flames attacked the evil spirits at this moment, tearing their bodies apart. Speaking of which, the last time Shanine came here, there weren't any evil spirits. Woof. Dabai complained when he saw the endless stream of evil spirits pouncing on them. It's been almost 10,000 years. It's normal to have some changes. And Lin felt that there was nothing strange about it, and said indifferently. At this moment, the clown saw a certain plant in the distance and exclaimed, "Look, there's a stalk of grass that's emitting a faint blue glow next to the boulder. It's definitely not an ordinary item." And Lin's eyes also lit up. Even from so far away, he could sense the energy fluctuations emanating from the grass. Without saying anything, Lin flew towards the blue grass and plucked it. Divine inspection technique. Serene opening grass, an item of extreme een. It grows in places where the aura of death is strong. It uses the aura of death as its nourishment and uses demonic blood as its foundation. It takes 300 years to reach initial success and 3,000 years to reach major success. This is a major success, tier 1 immortal grass. And Lin's eyes lit up and he was overwhelmed with emotions. A first-grade immortal herb. This time, he had really struck it rich. He immediately stowed the serene opening grass into his storage ring. Then, he turned his gaze to a nearby location. The sound of thunder seems to be coming from that direction. Could it be that a rare treasure has appeared? In order to avoid attracting attention, Lin, Dabai, and the clown advanced on the ground. Everyone drew a sharp intake of breath when they saw the scene in front of them. Gasp, and Lin was astonished. How many King evil spirits are there? The clown's lips twitched. At least 10,000. Before them was a vast expanse of crimson earth. Above the earth, a dense horde of evil spirits blotted out the sun and blotted out the sky. They floated around in the air, exuding a sinister aura that made one's flesh crawl. Big brother, and look over there. I think there's a blue ring of lightning. Woof. Dabai gestured with his eyes, and Lin looked toward the northeast of the crimson earth. The evil spirits there were especially densely packed, almost like a wriggling black curtain with very few gaps between them. However, he could still vaguely make out a blue ring of lightning through the horde of evil spirits. Looks like there are people trapped there. And Lin sighed with emotion. Then should we go and save them? The clown asked. And Lin pursed his lips and shook his head. They're not related to us, so why should we save them? Furthermore, this is such a dangerous place. We might even lose our lives. It's not worth it. He then seemed to have discovered something, and his eyes lit up. Look, the blue ring of light is 300 meters to the north. There seems to be something good there. The clown and Dabai looked over. Sure enough, they could vaguely make out a small tree with crimson flames burning from its body. Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 will lead the way. Dabai clown, protect me. We'll take advantage of the fact that a large horde of evil spirits are attracted by the blue ring of light to uproot the small tree and run. And Lin instructed excitedly. Dabai clown nodded with a speechless expression. He felt like their master was becoming more and more shameless. At the same time, within the blue ring of light, a beautiful young woman in a white dress gripped the lightning bead in her hand tightly as she maintained the protective spell formation. Two other young women in green dresses stood beside the young woman in white dresses. Their faces were deathly pale, and their eyes were filled with despair. "What do we do, Princess Inu? The supreme lightning spell formation can only last for 4 hours. It's almost time." One of the young women in green dresses spoke in a trembling voice. Once the spell formation ran out of energy, they would be greeted by the horde of evil spirits. That would be a fate even more terrifying than death. Perhaps they would all choose to commit suicide as soon as the spell formation broke. The young woman in white gritted her teeth and forced herself to remain calm. "Don't worry. Brother Wong will definitely come save us. Just hold on for a while longer. They might be here soon." He knew we were here a long time ago, but he still hasn't come to save us. He's clearly afraid of death and doesn't dare to come, the other young woman in green said with resentment. Inu shook her head, but she still didn't give up hope. Perhaps he's out there trying to think of a way. Right at this moment, an energy beam pierced through the blue ring of light. Boom! The scorching and powerful energy instantly reduced all evil spirits that came into contact with it to ashes. The three young women within the ring of light all shuddered as they looked toward the direction from which the energy beam had come. "Wah, I told you, Brother Chi Wu will definitely come to save me." Inu saw a glimmer of hope for survival. She saw that her brother was willing to risk his life to save her. The emotions that she had repressed for a long time finally erupted, and tears streamed down her face. Boom! Another beam of energy shot through the air. Immediately afterward, two silver figures wielding light swords appeared before her. Behind them was a handsome man, a dog, and a monkey wearing a mask. The three young women were stunned once again upon seeing this. "What's going on? The newcomers aren't Prince Chi Wu." Princess Inu's eyes glistened as several speculations surfaced in her mind. Could it be that these are helpers that Brother Chi Wu has found? Or could it be that these are a group of powerful beings who have coincidentally stepped into the battlefield and saw that they were trapped, so they decided to take the risk and come to their rescue? Speaking of which, they really are powerful. Even in the face of the horde of evil spirits, they were still able to carve out a path. Furthermore, the sword-wielding man in the middle is so handsome. Inu blushed as she watched the hero charging toward them. That figure was deeply engraved in her mind. However, it seems like they're heading in the wrong direction. Immediately afterward, the silver puppet, the male sword immortal, the dog, and the monkey brushed past the blue ring of light. They didn't even spare a glance at the three young women as they charged toward the north. Within the blue ring of light, the three young women's eyes widened in shock as they fell into a long silence. Princess Inu's body swayed slightly as her heart sank to the bottom. Her breathing became labored. "Their goal is the fire-blood divine tree." The other two female servants nodded woodenly. The scene of the hero saving the damsel in distress did not occur. Those people's goal was the same as theirs. They were all after the fire-blood divine tree. What a roller coaster of emotions. In fact, those people might have come here with a mentality of letting them attract the attention of a large group of evil spirits so that they could seize the opportunity to obtain the treasure. Princess Inu wasn't discouraged. This was their last hope of being rescued. She immediately shouted. She immediately yelled, "Fellow Taoists, please save us. We'll definitely reward you handsomely when we get out." Her voice was very loud, and the man several hundred meters away could definitely hear her. And Lin naturally heard her. However, with so many evil spirits around them, they were already in a difficult situation. How could they have the time to care about those trapped young women? He rushed toward the crimson flaming tree and forcefully pulled. Ow! It's so hard to pull. Princess Inu saw that those people didn't even turn to look at her after hearing her words. They only focused on pulling the fire-blood divine tree, as if they were pulling carrots. They didn't even give a simple response. What were they supposed to do? Princess Inu had never experienced such despair and indifference before. She was so angry that she was about to cry. Meanwhile, Lin and the others were still pulling the tree.